Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Burn the Corporate Fiction. I hope everyone is having a fine evening, or, well, we're approaching midnight. I apologize for the hiatus from streaming. Uh, my computer entirely crashed. I mean, I couldn't even turn it on or off. Actually, it was stuck on with like a one of those QR codes on there, and it's a Bill Gates special. You know what I mean? So it's been in the shop, and they cannot fix it. So what they're going to do is actually just give me pay for it, and I'll get a new one. So tonight I'm using my wife's laptop. I know I told you guys that I wanted to teach you guys how to use common law like I have been in other shows. I have no access to all my books. They're all stuck on an SD card. Okay, so I've got tons of them, but I literally have common law process and writs and um, exactly how to file all this stuff that I want to get into once I'm able to pull this stuff off my SD card. And first, you have to file your paperwork with the county in the first place. So, um, we're going to get into all that. But tonight, we're just going to kind of talk about the current events, and we are going to talk about the origin because it's the same. It's the same people. It's so New World Order is a misnomer. It's the old world order. It's the same war that's been going on between statutory, human, commercial law and natural law. It's the same story, and they're trying to figure out how to pull you over into, well, they have figured out how to do it, and that's what the Magna Carta actually allowed for. Statement might be confusing to many at first, but I can explain it. But let's break it down like this, right? So, um, going all the way back to the oldest written law, the Hammurabi Code or whatever. Most scholars agree it's the Hammurabi Code from ancient Babylon, and you'll realize that entire code only deals with shipping and commerce because all the jurists, every jurist of a true jurist, which means a student of law, that studies law knows that man does not make law. So you just have the law that's part of natural operation of mankind of Earth, and then you have and they're like, well, we need to regulate commerce though. We need to regulate the interactions between people in society. So that's where man can make law, but it's not law; it's statute. So like that's the difference. You'll read any written law, Hammurabi, whether it's Babylonian, Talmudic, or it is Roman, when it's written by men and it's made up by men, it's not actually law, it's commercial and it's statutory. And it's treated as law once you come under agreement to view it as law, to be subject to it as part of an agreement, meaning you're receiving a benefit from these people who have created it in order to be subject to it. So, but before I start getting into all that, let me say hi to the few people that are in the chat. I know my fucking douchebag father is having a stream on the same night that I am. I guess I can touch on that a little bit in a second, but let's say we got Make Stupid People Famous, Mojo Shop, RF is Killing Us Softly. Good to see you guys. Thank you for showing up. Theo Shen was in here, and I'm sure we'll have more pour in eventually. He's just going to beat a dead horse talking about the same shit he always talks about. And on top of that, let me address that real quick. So the reason I have an issue with Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind is because he is intellectually feeble, and when he cannot stand on his own knowledge, he has to personally attack somebody, right, to try to invalidate the points that are being made. Let me make it very clear, okay? I'm not a statist, all right? So when we were even having the debate that we were having, I'm not a statist. I'm a realist. There's a difference. Okay, I would love for everybody to be able to govern themselves and for the whole world to be on the same page as and understanding how natural law works, totally capable of governing themselves and participating in society with full knowledge of the law, both commercial and common law, right? Because you have to do business in society. That's the whole point of what I was just saying a little bit ago. I would love that. if everybody could just govern themselves. Unfortunately, even if, and at one point in time, we did have this entire nation was free like that, sovereigns without subjects, you still need a form of government because the other nations will take advantage of the disorganization of this nation and organize their own slave chattel uh, labor into militaries and come conquer you. And then because you have no organization, right? No type of ability to even organize because you have no government. You're just like, oh, we're just hippies and we're just smoking weed and living life, right? And that's it. It's not a thing, guys. Like it's just not. So realistically, you need to have some loose form of small government, which is what we originally had. Okay. And then my advocation in my last video for actually just my sheer joy that Trump had won is not because I don't think he's going to give you common. I don't think he's not going to give you common law. He's not going to give you your sovereignty, but none of that's going on. It's because the alternative of what we were facing was so horrendous and so horrific in what they had already had planned to do with Kami Kamala, right? That there would be no republic to resurrect. There would be no common law to go back to. That's why I was excited about that. Okay. Now, like those guys in Trump's administration, trust me, there's a bunch of stuff I already know. Okay. The best we can hope for is we meet in the middle somewhere on what they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to teach you on this channel is they work for you. They work for you. They have no power over you unless you contract with them. At the end of the day, that's the truth. All right. So that's what I was trying to explain to my father, right? And he wants to attack me personally in order to invalidate my points. And that doesn't work for me. That was, and then he wants to say, well, I was concerned about you. Well, no, if you were concerned about me, you would speak to me in private, not in public. But I'm not trying to air my drama. I just wanted to address that. He's a petty little man, and I don't have anything to say more about him at all. And he can keep beating his dumbass flat earth drum into the grave of his show because that's what he's going to do. And it's all he talks about. It's the same shit over and over and over again. Nothing ever new. We're going to move forward over here. Burn the corporate fiction. I don't mind if you guys like him and all this. I don't even want to make it like that. I just want to address that, move forward. So now we're going to move forward. And what we are moving forward into this evening is what the hell? It's with all these UAPs, guys. Like, okay, so wait, first of all, weren't they originally UFOs, right? They were. So what is a UAP? Unidentified aerial phenomena. Okay, whatever. Who comes up with this shit? But outside of that, who's actually seen one? Anybody that watches this video, or is anybody actually? So we're getting videos all the time on X and on Facebook and on whatever else, YouTube, whatever else. We're getting videos of these things all the time, right? But they turn out to be old videos, or they turn out to be airplanes, or they turn out to be like, has anybody actually physically seen these fucking things? Because I'm starting to think that there's one of two options. Either one, they don't exist, and that they're literally, this is a psychological operation to see if they can use social media itself just to drum up and use old posts to get people to believe something is going on when nothing's going on. That's what I think is actually happening, personally. But or it's a hologram. And here's the reason I say it's a hologram is because they're saying they can't track these things that have no thermal signature, right? And we know they can make whales fly through the sky and come out of the ground and splash on hard concrete and all this stuff. Like, they have this holographic technology. Why are people just automatically jumping to an assumption it's aliens, or it's a foreign country, right? Or it's not even happening? How about that? How about that one? How about it's not even going on? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I see RF says I can handle Sovereign Soul. I can't stand Larry and Nicole at all. Those two are always, hey, yeah, but listen, yeah, and he loves having a mind. Listen, I don't mind Larry and Nicole at all, but yes, I know what you're talking about. Sometimes they derail the show and all, yeah, for sure. And I don't know, and you know, listen, old boy gets absolutely hammered on my father's show, and he doesn't seem to have even the slightest problem with it. So whatever that means, guys. But outside of that, I think the UAPs, honestly, I think that they are I think that they're not even there. I think that they're uh using these, they're trying to see what they can get people to believe and act as if it's actually happening using social media to gauge their odds of success with something like Blue Beam or or a Messiah coming back or something like that. Because we all know, and the only reason they haven't pulled the trigger on this yet is because everybody immediately said, "Up, yep, we've seen that. That's Blue Beam. We know what the hell they're about to do. That's Blue Beam." I think that's the only reason they haven't pulled the trigger on trying to say that it's aliens or whatever, because they're like, yeah, people aren't buying this shit. They're, you know, they've got their fingers to the pulse of society with all the data collection, social media, and they're like, you know, turns out people immediately said Blue Beam, so nobody's buying this shit. Now where do we go with it? And it's probably what they're doing. They're trying to figure out where to go with it. They're like, well, should we just go with it anyway? Which actually leads into the final experiment. And I'm just going to talk about these current events for a few minutes before we get into the main subject tonight, just to let people pour in, you know, if they are going to, or if they're all just going to swing on my dad's nuts. I don't know. Uh, let people pour in, and then we can get into the actual topic. But in the meantime, people who rewatch this video can actually appreciate this show's take on current events, because the final experiment. So I was the one who actually broke the information about Duffy and his association with Shadow Gov, right? Fucking Bob Enyart, Shadow Gov. Okay, Bob Enyart. Who's Bob Enyart? He's some pastor who started basically a paramilitary operation to carry out right-wing extremism on abortion clinics and stuff like that. Well, what do we know about those people? Well, they usually work for the very people they're attacking, because once they do stuff like that, a whole bunch of legislation gets passed. It creates sympathy in the country for, oh, that poor abortion clinic, right? And all that stuff. Well, this is who this guy was. Not only that, but he was pointed to and intentionally not investigated for being the killer, pointed to as and intentionally not investigated for being the killer of JonBenet Ramsey, which those high profile celebrity murders, right? What do we know about those? They're almost always either an intentional ritual or a psychological operation of some point. Maybe the kid, but the whole point is this guy's so entrenched, Bob Enyart, with occult, and it's hard to separate the occult and the intelligence community, because in my opinion the CIA is, that's what intelligence is knowledge of the occult and manipulation of both psychological and supernatural forces. That's what they do. Okay. And so this guy's tied in with them. And if you guys have, I'm not going to recap the whole thing, but you guys can go watch my satanic experiment, which I had to fight YouTube to keep up, actually. Interestingly enough, it's still up on YouTube and Rumble, and you guys can go check that out and look at all the research I've done. And then other channels started picking it up, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, this guy's got some sketchy connection. Not to mention Will Duffy's got the now, for my law viewers that don't ordinarily, if you're rewatching this and you don't ordinarily you know, look into the globe versus flat earth or any of that stuff, right? That's what I'm talking about. And it all converges together, because the whole reason they need you to believe that you're on a globe is so that they can remove you from the idea of natural law. That's it. It's all connected. They need to remove you from the idea of a creator, or that you are in the image of the creator and that you are entitled to rights that were not granted to you by a government but endowed upon you by a creator. They need to remove that from you. And the most effective way to remove that from you is to remove the knowledge of where you are in this creation, of what this creation is. All right. So they tell you you're an evolved monkey spinning on a ball at 1,000 miles an hour on its axis, 66,000 miles an hour around the sun and what 1.4 million miles an hour through the universe, the galaxy's moving, or the solar system, whatever. Their numbers are ridiculous, and you're moving in 3 different directions at the same time at impossible speeds. But I'm not going to rehash that either. It all ties in, and Will Duffy's the guy who says this is going to be the final experiment, right? He says, well, first of all, it's not an experiment; it's an observation. Okay, and you're just, what are you experimenting? What's your control variable, right? Right. What's your independent variable, right? What are you experimenting with? What are you talking about? You're just going down there and you're saying, oh, if there's a 24-hour sun, then the Earth must be a globe. Does that make convexity to the Earth? No, absolutely not. Does that make NASA's fake shit all of a sudden real? No, absolutely not. Does not do any of that, right? Does it explain the crepuscular rays from a sun that's supposedly 93 million miles away in space? No, absolutely not. So seeing a 24-hour sun, and I think that's a setup. So that's what I want to get into. So first of all, how dumb is it? And they did put Jaron and Austin in an interesting. Well, I think Jaron's in on it the whole time. Honestly, I do. That's a conversation for later, though. And Austin may have been compromised. And here's the thing: the people that we're talking about that you're dealing with, they'll kill your family. They have no problem doing that. You know what I mean? They don't care about that, right? So listen, everybody who's like, oh, I would never be compromised. If you have anything in life that you care about, they will compromise you if you get too close to something. I guarantee you. And I think that has happened to both of them, to both Austin and perhaps Jaron's always been, because I've never seen another flat Earth show that has hundreds of thousands of subscribers like that, and has, you know what I mean, and has been featured on Netflix, and of course he was the first pick, right? So yeah, he so rich people never gamble, okay, guys? They never gamble. They'll never ever take a chance. And they were twisting these guys, Austin and Jaron's arm, whoever they could get to go on this trip, because they already knew the outcome. They already had this plan. They had the end planned at the beginning. It was a sure thing. So whatever they did, and I'm not even going to speculate on how they pulled it off, or maybe it's authentic, and maybe they did see a 24-hour sun, which doesn't invalidate it doesn't make the Earth a globe. Let's put it that way. It just means we have more investigation to do, right? But when you look into the shadowy background of Will Duffy, first of all, his church is called Agape Lodge, or I'm sorry, not that was Aleister Crowley's OTO lodge called Agape Lodge. Actually, it's called Agape Fellowship, which I honestly, earnestly, after looking into his best friend and mentor's background, calling his church Agape Fellowship is an absolute nod to Aleister Crowley. And those who know that Aleister Crowley was part of creating NASA with L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, right? And Wernher von Braun, right? And so it's that calling it Agape is a direct nod to Crowley. And these guys are into dark shit, right? I mean, just look at him. Look at him. He's entirely dishonest. Okay. But if you guys haven't watched my video, The Satanic Experiment, go check it out. I know a lot of you have. And if you guys want me to make a part 2 to that in the wake of, I guess we have a 24-hour sun now, right? Even though it all seems pretty sketchy and shaky from what I've seen. But even if we do, doesn't prove. But if you guys want me to do a second part to The Satanic Experiment where I can dig a little bit more into, or a lot of bit more into, the players involved with this, not normally what this channel is about, which is why I want you guys, if you're watching on the restream, or if you're watching it live, I want you guys to let me know if you want me to do some more investigation into that and do a follow-up video, Satanic Experiment Part 2, the conclusion, right? It's what we'll call it, because now supposedly it's over with, right? And we're gonna trace the lines of everybody involved, including Candace Owens' producer, right? We're going to look into every single person's background. And I'm the guy to do that because I can find what is unfindable. on the internet when it comes to law or anything else, and I will find it. So if you guys want that, let me know. It's good to see we've had some more people. We got Joyce B in the house, Shawnee B. Good to see you guys. Yeah, like I said, sorry for taking so much time. This wasn't me this time. It was my computer just crashed. That's it. And so I just been kind of stuck. My wife is she's a gamer on the computer and stuff, so she, is like, babe, I'm gonna have to use your computer if I don't get one this week. I can't go on not streaming, especially when we pay $1.5 million a month for StreamYard, which is ridiculous. But yeah, they upped from like 22 to 40, or it was like $25 to $44 out of nowhere. It's weird. But anyway, without further ado, we've had some people roll in. Tonight, what I want to wait, let me make sure there was no more there were not any more current events I wanted to touch on. What else? Write anything, whatever other psychological operations they might have going on right now, if I've forgotten, right? Because I know the drones are a big one. The final experiment's big in our community anyway, not in general. I feel like I'm forgetting one though that's like incredibly. Oh yeah, got the United Healthcare shooter. Let me speak on that for a second, right? Before we get into this subject matter tonight. So the United Healthcare shooter, first of all, I knew that was a 3D gun right away. Absolutely knew it was. He had to keep re-racking the bullets, right, or the chamber, because it wasn't semi-automatic pistol. 3D printed. That guy who actually shot the United Healthcare CEO is probably dead, right? But the guy that they've arrested is probably an MK Ultra mind control type of guy, right? Well, everything about that entire situation is fishy, because they're trying to. First of all, I think it was nothing more than a cover-up hit to keep Nancy Pelosi and then people that engage in insider trading on Capitol Hill, to keep them from going to prison. Because this guy was being investigated by the DOJ for insider trading regarding a recent scandal with United Healthcare that implicated Nancy Pelosi, right? And then the very family of the kid that gets caught for shooting the United Healthcare. Basically, you know what? Maybe I'll do that on a different show. But basically, what I want to get to is it not insane how they were glorifying the murder of this guy? That's fucking nuts, right? Am I the only one who thinks that's nuts? Like, you can just go up and shoot somebody in the back in the middle of the street, and then you're what, a hero now? Is that a thing? Yeah, I don't know, right? Nothing about it. I think it's 100% got the CIA's fingerprints all over it. MK Ultra. How do you leave New York City with all those cameras, with the facial recognition, governed and controlled by artificial intelligence? And there's no way, dude. Everything about it is that was a government hit. They killed that guy intentionally, and now they're, of course, because everything they do is multifaceted, they're taking the aftermath of that of that operation and making it a psychological operation to rally the crazy ass communists that all of a sudden are prevalent in our society, to be like, eat the rich, and he's like the Joker, and oh my God, isn't he hot? He's so hot. He's the hottest murderer I've ever seen. Right? Like, isn't it? These people are fucking nuts. The whole world's lost their mind, dude. I don't get it. But anyways, that's the last thing I wanted to cover. Without further ado, this is a fantastic documentary. Now, I'm only going to run about 2 hours tonight, right? Right, yeah, like RF says, so go and sit in McDonald's with gun and all, right? As if, and they found that backpack already in the park before, the same backpack he got found with in Pennsylvania. How does that make sense? Get the fuck out of here, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Joyce B says King Nico has 3 excellent videos on the final experiment, and he went live today. So I will. I don't think I've watched him before. I'll take a look, Joyce. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, you don't kill evil people and eat McDonald's. Well, first of all, we're presuming this guy is evil, like, and that's a big thing. Is like, okay, he's the CEO of an insurance company, and yeah, at that level of the game, you do a lot of dirt. But like, to just blanket call, what they're doing is they're manipulating the system of law, That's the whole thing. All comes back to the administration of your estate. That's why they're able to do all this insurance stuff, right? Is because you're an infant and they have to take care of you. So that's how the medical industry has been empowered with basically government authority to have control over you, because they need to make sure their chattel are healthy, right, and safe. And while simultaneously that's being used to poison and kill you. But these are all topics I will get into. I really want to get into this. I just wanted to briefly cover current events, address my douchebag father, and then this interview tonight is old that I have, right? It's Alex Jones, and I know people are going to go, oh God, fucking Alex Jones. And trust me, I get it, right? Because listen, like I was saying just a little bit earlier about Austin Whitsitt and Jaron, you have people you care about, they'll compromise you. If you get too big of a following, you get too close. I can see that that's happened to Alex, because if you look at his older stuff when he was young, solid work. And this is from when he was young. Now he's, really commercialized, and I'll let everybody make up their own minds about Alex, but Aaron Russo was actually killed for the interview I'm about to show you. And what we're going to do is we're going to break down this interview and how it applies to what's going on today, but also what has gone on in this country prior to when this interview took place. And so don't turn it off just because it's Alex Jones. Listen to what Aaron Russo is actually saying. He's going to talk about Nick Rockefeller. And so the coolest thing, what made me decide to do this, was that Alex Jones said it's fair use. Use this interview, talk about it, spread it, right? We'll see if he stays true to his word, but just in case he doesn't, before we do show it, I'm just going to do we're low tech here, guys. All right. We don't have a production studio, none of that shit. So when I share this, it's going to seem kind of cheesy, but it's just a little fair use disclaimer, right? So if I can even find the fucker. My bad. Hold on. It's my wife's computer. It's not mine. I'm just, trying to get the feel for it. Okay. Let's try this again. Window. There it is. Okay. So I'll just show that for, a few moments or whatever. And it's fair use, right? Alex Jones says it's fair use. If you guys want to strike it or take it down, do whatever you want. Who cares? But just figured I'd try to keep it up. Okay. Yeah. So Joyce, he did. So Joyce B asked, didn't Aaron Russo die of cancer? Yeah, he died of bladder cancer. Right. Just watch this interview. You'll see why I don't think that was And cancer is one of their favorite way to silence people that they never want to be linked to killing. Well, particularly people they like. Actually, cancer is the way they do it. So let's check this out. Oh, hold on. Got to share just the window.
Become the best individuals we can be. We're put on this earth to become the best individuals we can be, to fulfill our God-given potential. Right? We're not here to play the strength so the government can tell us how to live our lives and what we must do. We put in these systems and these paradigms.
In August of 2007, an American icon of liberty and a good friend of mine, Aaron Russo, died. That's almost 17 years ago. And I noticed that copies of my viral interview with him were posted at Infowars.com have been taken off YouTube, taken off Instagram, taken off Facebook, taken off Twitter. So I thought, hey, is that on Band.video? Our video side of Band Videos? No, it wasn't. Some clips were, but not the full documentary I made a few years after he died. We released the interview right away before he died of cancer, of bladder cancer. But I made a documentary that had added graphics and some extras on it. So here is that documentary that I released a few years after Aaron Russo's death in full. He battled the private Federal Reserve. He battled the globalist. His sources predicted the microchip population, the vaccine passports, everything. He was really ahead of his time. He was a major producer, married to Bette Midler, put out Eddie Murphy movies, you name it. But he really turned against Hollywood when he learned about the New World Order and was a great guy. And I'm so sad that he's left us. But hey, we're all going to see on the other side. So here is the full, uncut interview just about a month before he died in 2007. I hope you can share it. I hope you can use it. It's free to air. People send us emails. Can I take a clip? Can I use it in my film? Can I? Yeah, it's free to air, meaning we own the video, but
so right there, he said it's free to air. Use it. We wanna share. So there you go, YouTube. You fucking hear that. So if you're gonna take it down, you're gonna take it down because of what it says, which also makes you look bad. On top of that, notice he said that Aaron died just a month after this interview. I'm telling you guys this. I've watched this interview several times now, and the reason that I'm showing you is because I want to go through and explain exactly what he means by what he's, because he doesn't even have a full understanding of why Nick Rockefeller told him these things. He's just repeating what he was told. I understand why they've done the things that they've done, Nick Rockefeller and them guys. And on top of that, another thing, what he said in the beginning of the video, and is the audio horrible? Okay, let's see. Audio scratchy. Okay. Let's see if we can fix that. Okay, so we'll do reduce mic background noise. I don't know. We'll try it. You guys let me know if it's still scratchy. But let me get to this point. So, the original comment he said is, he said, that people are just here to live lives and basically explore the arts, stuff like that. This is the purpose of a commercial society. So we're gonna start this out tonight with this kind of oration on what law is, essentially, right? So why do people live in society? What Thomas Jefferson said about the common law is common law works best in an agrarian society. And agrarian society is a farmer society. Why does it work best in a farmer society? Because we can truly each be kings and queens living together without subjects. We can be sovereigns without subjects. We can be peers without a king if we all are self-sufficient. As soon as you create the situation of dependency on other people, you enter a power dynamic. Okay, that's where contracts come from. That's what commerce is agreement and exchange between two or more people, or two or more houses or entities, however you want to look at it. So when you're completely self-sufficient, you own your land, a allodial title, which is how this country was at the original, in its origin. It wasn't registered. The title wasn't split. You didn't have to pay to use it. None of that shit. You just owned it outright. You lived off of it. It fed and nourished your family, clothed your family, and you did not need anything from outside of your farm, right? Well, obviously the northern, so you had that in the South, and that's why Virginia's Bill of Rights, it is the best Bill of Rights ever. It was written by Jefferson. It's exactly embodies the common law and the spirit of the Magna Carta and the spirit of the common law that existed before the Magna Carta. But why do people decide to abandon that and live in societies? One, through circumstances beyond people's control. They're, generationally pushed out of the farming type of situation. But secondly, I don't know if anybody knows what it's like to run a farm or have ever been on a farm, but a farm is all day, dawn to dusk work, which is good. It's good for the soul, right? It's good hard work, and that's why you can be free when you do it. But there's this other aspect of mankind called art, creativity. Okay, society allows for art and creativity to flourish, but must necessarily be based on dependency on one of like, how can you develop a specific profession as a teacher if you have to farm all day, right? How can you develop a specific profession as a musician or a psychologist, which is pseudoscience in my opinion anyway, but or any of these other professions that we have in society, not the menial labor jobs that the lower class end up filtering into, but I'm talking about your general, when you think about what professions does a kid want to be, right? what professions does a child aspire to be able to engage in once they're older? And you're looking at outside of the civil service, like firefighter, police, stuff like that. You're looking at artist, singer, musician. You're looking at teacher, counselor, all of these things that allow humanity to these different these different fields of work that allow humanity to explore their potential, their intellectual potential and their creative potential. Those cannot exist in a society where every single person has to work to take care of themselves. Now, I'm not advocating for one or the other, and if I was, I would advocate for the farmers, the agrarian, because dependency is dangerous. But I'm just showing you guys this is the main way how commercial law, or man believing that he can make law because he's just regulating commerce, but then he figures out how to drag you in under it as property and make you property in commerce, right? Which of course was the plan the whole time. Now man is God, right? Ha ha ha. Yeah, that's what that always leads to inevitably, and art opens the door for it. Now I'm not rallying against art, but this is the big struggle, So when we live in a city, when we live in a town, when we live in a community, and we don't all have to take the full burden of every basic need of survival, then we can have an arts center. Then we can have these various services and different professions where people can now you can just focus on building. If you like building houses, you don't have to build your house and then farm and only build when you're fixing your house and stuff. And this is the idea behind how statutory law is created, why it was created, right? And the difference between the two societies that are primarily, like the one we live in now is primarily, it's all US code, statutory. Well, it's code, it's codification. Actually, it's beyond, it's one step, it's fallen into a black hole under a statute, right? And then you have just the law. And the only way you end up, and I've told you guys this many times, the only way you end up outside of common law is through contract. There's 5 jurisdictions of American jurisprudence, and those 5 jurisdictions are pretty much general for all of Western civilization throughout the Middle Ages, from like literally from the 1200s all the way to today, right? And the only way you end up outside of the common law jurisdiction is by contract, by agreement, or by presumption, which means you're presumed to be an idiot or an infant or to be dead. And so somebody else is administering your property and they're playing this big game of pretend like you don't exist and you're just part of the estate. You're just a piece of property of the estate. And you never say otherwise because you don't know any better, which also proves that you're an infant. So I just wanted to get that little preface out. Let me know about the audio. I hope I can fix it. Maybe, yeah. I'm not sure. See, this is what sucks about using my wife's computer, because it probably would have been fine on mine. But here, let's try turn it down a little bit. See if that helps.
It's open to public, fair use. It is a public trust to use. So use it and stop worrying about it. This guy wanted to be heard. It's our job to have him heard, and we love you.
You rolling? What happened on 9/11 is a phony. And we never learned the truth about 9/11. The whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip planted in them. All money is to be in those chips. And this is getting straight from Rockefeller. So this is what they want to accomplish. Aaron, what do you think of his immigration was about? The Rockefellers funded that. We funded it. They do whatever they want to do. But we want.
It just occurred to me, and I don't want to continue to stop this like as we get into it, but I did not give a preface for those of you who do not know who Aaron Russo is. He was a big Hollywood guy, big Broadway guy. He wrote plays, he produced movies. I don't know if you guys seen the movie Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. That was Aaron Russo. And think about what that movie's about. Isn't that interesting? That's kind of always where his mind has been, right? The whole thing of he can destroy this guy's life and put this guy, Eddie Murphy, in his place. It was all a bet over $1, because the money didn't actually matter. They were just flexing their power. That was the point of the movie, right? So this guy's always been, noble-minded when it comes to the inequity between the powerful and the powerless, right? So Aaron Russo's solid. Alex Jones at this point in time, in my opinion, was solid. I think he was compromised after, but either way, he's just doing the interview and the stuff that Aaron Russo said. So the reason I wanted to point out that he was this big producer Hollywood guy is because he had access to Nick Rockefeller. He had access to these big wigs in Hollywood and in corporate America and in politics. So take what he's saying uh, as gospel. And I'll go in and explain further as he gets into the intricacies of the plan that was explained to him, why and how that's been done. Because that part, I believe he actually never knew. He just knew it was wrong.
Well, it doesn't matter anymore. It's their agenda, it's their plans that matter. They have all the money they want. They can make all the money they want. They have a machine that can make all the money. It's not about money. It's about control. It's about their vision of how they want to see the world. Yeah, George Bush saying democracy means freedom. No, democracy equals new world order. I believe God put on this earth to be the.
See, I'm not going to be able to not stop it and comment. So we'll see how far this might be a couple episodes of the show going through this. But he's right. Listen, it's nothing about this, not the healthcare system, not the banking system. If you think they're doing this for money, to make money off of you, no. They've long since removed money from the equation. We don't even have money anymore. We have currency. We have debt notes that we exchange back and forth called securities. That's what the SEC or SEC, Securities and Exchange Commissions, one of the most powerful organizations in the world, because everything's based on the Federal Reserve note all around the world, which is tied to oil, right? So it's not about making money off you. It's about controlling you. That was the big trick in the first place, was how do we, so whether people want to believe law is spiritual or not, it is. I don't know what to tell you. Come to terms with it or you'll never learn it. And they know that law is directly tied to free will, because law, anything that's written into law, whether it's common law, which shouldn't be written, or it's statutory law, has to do with property. And what is property? Property is the ultimate realization of free will. You find something, you devolve it, whether you whittle a stick into a staff or whether you just take it in its original form to be used for your purpose, that's considered devolution in law, right? Because it was already in a perfect state as God made it. Now you're going to repurpose it. That's actually called in law, at common law, it's called devolution, because you're taking it out of its perfect state and making it imperfect by using it for your own will, to serve your own will. So all law has to do with will. Any crime is a violation of will, and or theft, which is the same thing. Theft is a violation of will. If you get raped, it's a theft of your sexual autonomy. If you get killed, it's a theft of your life. If you get robbed, well, it's a theft, right? You know, if you get assaulted, again, a theft of your bodily autonomy. As the whole thing, it all comes back to will. Okay, did somebody violate your free will? And this is the problem they've had since ancient times, is like, okay, we want to violate their free will. They're too stupid to even know that they have it. But if we do not get them to agree to it, then it will never actually work, because this all goes back to a spiritual realm. That's why they've worked so hard to create this system where they can just declare you incompetent, take control of your property, and then administer you as a child under an agreement. And as long as you don't protest, nothing will ever happen. And if you don't know to protest because you are an infant, then that's why they engineered this society. That's why they took control of education. That's why they teach you false history. They don't want you to know the stuff that I'm teaching you on this channel. They do not want you to know this, because if you know it, then the jig is up, and they have to follow the law. They will follow it. People who think these people do not follow the law are absolutely 100% deluded. They have to follow it. They created it just so well, they didn't create it. They manipulated it so you would have to follow it the way that they want you to, because they have to follow it already. That's what I'm saying. So you have this natural, and when I say law, that's the common law, the natural law, right? The do no harm, which basically boils down to do not violate anyone's free will. Do not violate anyone's free will ever, unless they agree to it. And then that violation of their free will is the taking of something that was promised to you, or that is considered yours because they're incapable of managing it. That's what the whole thing about the 14th Amendment. Probate was grandfathered into this country. But you know what? That's a whole episode. I did an episode on that. I'll touch on it throughout this presentation, but I'll just keep ranting. So I'm sorry. Let's go forward.
The best person I can be. I put everybody on this earth to be the best they can be. You have to stand up for what's right in life. Unless you do that, you're nothing.
All right, CRF.
Award-winning filmmaker turned freedom fighter, Aaron Russo was an amazing individual. He'd been battling cancer for more than 3.5 years when he began making America Freedom to Fascism, that he shot, directed, edited.
So I don't want to harp too much on this, but if the audio is crappy, the audio is crappy when I play the video. Is that what I'm generally getting? But can you guys understand what's being said? Because I wouldn't doubt. Maybe I'm being a bit conspiratorial here, but I wouldn't doubt that this file has been corrupted already, probably by X, the free speech platform, and everybody should be aware of what that's setting up. By the way, right? Because you can watch shit on X, and I love it. Right, I love it. But you can watch stuff on X right now that you'll never see anywhere else. Anywhere else. Steve Inman, I'm going to give him a shout out because his videos are hilarious, non-essential commentary where he basically does UFC commentary over criminals getting their asses kicked or shot or whatever, right? Hilarious stuff. Give him a shout out. You'll never see him on anything but X or Rumble. But the reason they're doing this stuff, right, is because they want the outrage from the people. Well, my child got on X and seen somebody get a hole put in it or whatever, right? Like my child turned on X and he's seen some racist thing, or my child. They're trying to just open the floodgates of uncensored stuff because they want the people to rally for censorship. That's what they want. They need you to, so then they can be the hero for it. I hope nobody falls for that shit. Because even though, yeah, look, you're going to get what you're looking for. If you're looking for unpleasant shit, you're going to find it, right? But that's what being free is all about. But I know at the very bottom of this, at the very basis of what Musk is doing with this free speech thing is he wants people to rally, or the people that control it, whoever it is. They want people to rally for censorship, man. They do. Okay? So if the audio is crappy and you absolutely cannot understand it, I'm going to be eyeing the chat, okay? But some people say they can understand it. Some people say they cannot. Shawnee B says, no, I can't understand what they're saying. If it's too intolerable, I don't, at that point, since other people are saying it's crappy, but I can hear it, I feel like it's a combination of both the platform I'm showing it on and your own equipment. But for the people watching this on the restream, to avoid, boring them to death, let's just try to suffer through it. I'm going to give a lot of commentary on this, so you should be able to pick up anything you didn't understand from what I say, because I'm probably not going to be able to listen to more than a minute or two of each thing. He drops so many jewels, I'm just going to have to tell you guys exactly how it applies and what's going on. You know what I mean? So let's get back to it.
Did pretty much on his own with just the help of a few people. An amazing individual, a long life of award-winning films, of hard work, and for standing up for the Bill of Rights and Constitution. When we first went to shop this interview, I put it on the web for free, but parts of it have never been seen. So here today, you're going to have a chance to see the in-depth interview, the final interview with Aaron Russo. But his important work lives on. He made one of the definitive films exposing the elite that control this nation and the world, the private Federal Reserve. And the information he put out 2 years ago rings more true today than ever. And his film, America Freedom to Fascism, and Mad as Hell, and the other great works he did just continue like ripples in a pond to light bushfires in the minds of men and women everywhere.
Right, bro.
So this film,
we get it,
is dedicated to the one, the only.
All right, I think he's
Aaron Russo.
He's done.
You rolling?
Kidding.
I'm honored to be interviewed by Alex Jones. It's Truth Secret, fighting for justice in America.
Started and be all smiling.
Aaron, when did you start to think something's wrong in the world? Start to find
Well, that was a progression of events. I became very, I've always been a very independent person. I always believed in individuality and that we were put on this earth to be unique individuals to fulfill our God-given potential. And that the only way to fulfill your potential is to be free, to find out who you are, and to make your errors, to make mistakes. And I grew up, I began to realize more and more the government was inhibiting me in things that I wanted to do. And
Oh shit.
what happened, I was very successful in the ladies' lingerie business. I worked for my dad. He had a small undergarment business, and I created the first ladies' bikini panties back in 1963, actually. And then I opened up a
Men watching, thank him. Let's all give a moment of silence and gratitude for Aaron Russo for having created the bikini, for sure. Right. I think even some women will probably agree with me on that. Right. So, my bad. Just had to throw that in there.
nightclub in Chicago called the Electric Theater that opened up the day Martin Luther King was assassinated. Right. And so the city of Chicago was in flames the day my club opened, and nobody came out to the club. And what happened was that that was the Democratic Convention in Chicago in '68. And so my club became a hangout for the hippies, because they wanted to go to Chicago and protest what was going on. And I was having a concert.
So here again, I told you guys I wouldn't be able to go very long without stopping it. So basically, what he's about to explain is a story where he started getting shook down by the city of Chicago for protection money. Because I mean, what is a government, especially a government allowed to be unfair? No matter what, even if you keep a small government under your control and you're sovereign over it, it's always going to try. This is why the founders all warned about the importance of being involved with government and politics and keeping it on a chain, under a chain, because it always seeks to become this mobster type of situation because government's the biggest gang in the world. It is absolutely 100%. The only reason we even need the small limited one that we had in this country, if people just stayed educated, is to create a centralized node of organization for defense from other organized gangs of governments around the fucking world. That's my only thing. The only reason I ever say it's necessary is because other nations have governments. And if we didn't have one, then we become a conquerable situation. So the only way to have true anarchy. But my point, what I was going to get to, is that he says the Democratic National Convention started hanging out at his club or whatever. The Democrats, okay, so I don't believe in the whole party thing at all. Obviously, I'm not subject to the dichotomy, the binary mode of thinking where these are the good guys, they're both entire pieces of shit. And in fact, at one point in time, there were more parties. Like there was a plethora of parties. So the fact that we've whittled down to just two is indicative of the fact that they are both on the same coin. Okay, 100%. Now, not really going to get into my view, but like there is a bit of wild card stuff going on, but that's because not all the wealthy people want the same thing, right? So one thing's better for us, the other thing was complete annihilation. But I do want to point out the Democratic Party has always been controlled by the Illuminati. So I've shown on this channel before that a letter from Reverend G.W. Snyder to George Washington talking about the Jacobin movement in France and the Illuminati and how they infiltrated Masonic lodges all across Europe and wondering if they had infiltrated the Masonic lodges in the United States. And George Washington said that, and I don't necessarily entirely trust him, but he said that he was satisfied that they had not infiltrated the lodges, but they had created the Democratic Society in the United States. And this eventually became the Democratic Party. And they have always owned and controlled. So this is why you have like Barack Obama's chef washing up dead in his backyard in Martha's Vineyard, and nobody investigates it. It's like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, Barack Obama's chef washed up dead in his backyard. right? Isn't that weird? He must have went for a late night swim, took a break from cooking in the middle of the night, I guess, or whatever. What the hell was he even doing there? And then went swimming, drowned, washed up in his backyard. And then no investigation though, because we know, well, it's Barack Obama. He couldn't fucking do anything like that, right? Or Joe Biden literally nibbling on feet. And just, dude, I'm telling you, like there's the bad, which is the Republican, and then there's the downright fucking insidiously, demonically evil, which you can see from their followers. They don't even have to fake. They don't even have to fake extremists on their side. They don't have to hire anybody, pretend like you're a leftist extremist. No, because most people are already. They don't have these Proud Boy type guys that the right has where they have to pay them to go fucking act like, ooh, spread this message. No, because these people do it for free from the comfort of their own homes. You got a fucking transformer talking about, if you don't let me in the bathroom I want to go in, I'm gonna take an AR. You know what I mean? Like what? What guys? Like they have their own authentic crazy, and that's because they have been controlled by this demonic organization the entire time. It's 100% a fact. But anyways,
at my club one night to raise money, and the police raided the nightclub, my club for no reason at all. And I was standing outside in my office, overlooking the street, and I saw these paddy wagons pulling up in front of my club. And I was a 24-year-old kid. I had no experience at all, really. So what are these paddy wagons doing?
let me try to reshare it if it's hard to hear for you guys. I'm sorry. Let me try to reshare it.
These cops getting out of the paddy wagons coming into my club. Oh my God.
Did that help at all?
And so I ran down to the stage, and I got on the stage. I stopped the band from playing, and I said to the people in the audience, "We're being raided, so sit down on the floor, cooperate, and plot your identification and cooperate with the police." And as I said that, two of the cops from behind threw me onto the floor and grabbed me and started dragging me out of the club. And I'm going, victory, playing it for what it was worth at the time. I was a kid, and then I saw the fire department there, and the fire department was dumping garbage cans, the garbage all over the floor. And I was thought to myself, well, why are they doing that? And very quickly, as they were dragging me out, and I didn't quite understand it. So
Yeah, I'll give you guys the gist of basically what he's saying. Is basically they took him out of his club, and then they shook him down. He had to pay protection. Eventually, he shut down his club. Let's move a little bit further to the good shit.
So to me, the most important thing is that I like who I am, and that I take actions that I respect if somebody else did them. And you look at life of character, honesty, truthfulness, and I believe that a person has the ability to mold their character like a sculptor can mold a piece of clay. Now, there's no saying they'll never change the spots. I don't believe that. I believe people have the total ability.
He's actually right about that. Until you hit 50. If you're a retard after 50, you're going to be a retard forever.
To mold their character into what they choose to be in their life, what their ideals are. And that's what I try to do with my life. I am not the same person today I was 30 years ago. I've changed a lot. So,
all right.
But they made it retroactive.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is good.
Take actions.
Now we get into the good part.
The philosophy is that you have to like yourself. You have to be decent.
Fucker. Okay.
I've never told the story on tape before. I was a pretty big silver and gold trader, and I always paid my taxes, and I took what was a legal tax deduction on my silver trades. And a few years later, I think it was 88 or 89 or something, the IRS claimed.
Good place to start. So let me explain. This is kind of what I wanted to do with this video. Is I want to explain what taxes actually are, the income tax, right? What they actually are and why they don't make sense to most people. Is because what the income tax actually is an estate tax. It's a tax on making money off of property not considered to be yours, which would be in the case of an income tax, that'd be your body. Okay. Your body's under administration as part of the res of an estate. Res meaning the things, the property of an estate, like a res is a thing. So res, when you say the res defendant, that means the thing defendant, because I actually have on my old computer, which is now crashed, where some in Michigan, a couple donated a bunch of land to the state of Michigan. I think it was like 500 acres. And then Michigan stopped using it for the purpose that it was donated for, but because the acres were owned by the couple, but being used by, so basically they assumed control of the 500 acres and took Michigan to court, and it says 500 acres of land versus the whatever county, and that's called the res. That's literally how law works, but that's not common law. That must necessarily be equity, which is the enforcement of contracts, which is old, very, very, very old form of law. It went hand in hand with common law, right? Because common law doesn't provide the remedy for contracts that equity does. But equity can never override common law. So my point in bringing that up is, when you get an income tax, the way they did this was actually the Corporate Tax Act of, I believe, 1909, coupled with the 16th Amendment, which was ruled by the Supreme Court, which I wish people would get this through their mind, does not fucking matter, because you're above every court that you created, every single one of them. So somebody actually commented on the Rumble side, is EGGSV, I'm not sure how you say that, but said, how would you create a grand jury? Like do a video on creating grand juries. And I will actually, but here's the most important thing. You don't have to submit, because the word submit is to enslave yourself, right? Or to bow to another person. You just create a grand jury. A grand jury is the fourth branch of government. It's the highest form of law. Like, you're above the government. That's where the people get together in their own special jury to judge what's going on in the republic they created. That's how that works. You literally don't have to. But the income tax, is a tax on the use of property that is not yours. Okay, because you're an infant. You were abandoned at the hospital, right? Your estate was essentially captured and then mortgaged to the federal government and then used as collateral. And now the property of the estate, the abandoned infant child who's never claimed the estate, is a trustee of the United States corporation in the administration of their own property. And I mean, I try to explain it simply, and that probably sounded like a bunch of gobbledygook. So I don't know how to, but it's that simple. They're taxing you for using property that's not yours. I don't know how else to. So the only remedy to that is to claim your estate. That's it. It's the only remedy. Like, it's simple. If I'm not explaining it well enough, or I need you guys to ask me questions in the comments and in the chat as we're doing this stuff, to really highlight how I'm not making this clear. I need that, so that I can, okay, that's what you're not understanding. I need to be able to elucidate these various points for you, so, but yeah, income tax doesn't make sense because it should never be a thing. They can't reach in and take the product of your labor unless you are an indentured servant. Okay? Those are the only people who are subject to having the fruits of their labor immediately taken before they even receive them. They're taken out before you even get it. Okay? You have to be indentured and under contract. That's how law works.
Now, what I did, and other people did as well, was now illegal. You couldn't do it anymore. But they made it retroactive. So it was retroactive. It was legal then. I did what was legal. So yeah, but it's now making it illegal retroactively. And that's not good. So you owe us $600,000 or $800,000. For what? It was legal. How could you make something retroactive?
See, and here's an added caveat. They didn't put the tax he's talking about on the silver trades and all that stuff. It's because they could not. That was actually your property. You weren't using a Federal Reserve note owned by the Federal Reserve, therefore taxable, right? Because you're using a service. They're facilitating your economy basically based on your own labor, right? So, and then all of a sudden, once they got enough people dumbed down, and I'm telling you, they're putting feelers out all the time to see, do we, and you can see this in the laws between like the UCC and Administrative Procedures Act, the housing, or I'm sorry, the, what's it called? The Investment Company Act and all this. It's incremental as they get enough people. They're looking, okay, how many people do we have now? What's the population? Is it enough? Can we put this into effect? And most people will go with it. And yes, that's how they've done it. It's obvious when you look at the incremental introduction of commercial law through statute, and then under commercial law, now all you have is code. So they introduced commercial law through statute, and then you fell into the black hole I talked about earlier under that statute called codification of that statute, which is UCC. Okay, that's what they're doing.
Change the law backwards in time. It makes no sense when we're doing it. And so everybody said they can't do that. So we went to court, a class action lawsuit. And the judge agreed with the IRS and said they could do it retroactively.
They agreed with the IRS because you're not operating in law. Everything is happening according to contractual agreements that build upon themselves. They build upon themselves. Nobody went to the court and said, hey, I'm the heir and executor of my estate. Like, what are you doing right now? Why are you trying to charge me for using this? Nobody did that. Right? They go, oh, you can't do that because you can't make stuff go back in time. You can't do something retroactively and blah, blah. I said, well, you're an infant. You're not actually under the law. You're under basically our arbitrary will and pleasure. And yes, we can, because you haven't actually attacked the cause of why we can do this.
And that's when I knew that there was something wrong in America with the IRS and the system here. You know,
Aaron, you told me the story last night, and before you even finished saying in the late '80s, the tax law, I said retroactive, and I knew that because they literally ruined my dad, but he paid. He didn't know. He still thought this was America, and it was legal tax law. What you're supposed to do? They said retroactively you owe, and with not just retroactive, but they said you also penalties and interest.
that's right.
So how do you have penalties and interest on something when they retroactively change the law?
Well, firstly, they can't retroactively. How can you do something retroactively? Penalties and interest are a farce. No, because they do whatever they want to do. And that's when I realized America is not America. It's not the land I was taught it was. Because they can do whatever they wish to do. And there's nothing a citizen can do about it.
So you made American Freedom of Fascism. I want to walk through that film. I want to encourage everybody out there to get a copy of it on DVD. It was also in theaters around the country. And I think the best film out there on the Federal Reserve and the IRS and the whole bankers scam. I want to discuss that with you here. But I wanted to go back a little bit.
I guess the best way to explain this, right, is simply this. They can only do this to U.S. persons, U.S. citizens, 14th Amendment citizens. That's why they made the 14th Amendment in the first place. Any lawyer who wants to argue that with me, I'm more than happy to, because it's right in Andrew Johnson, the president at the time of the supposed ratification of the 14th Amendment, which June 13th, 1973, or I'm sorry, 1967, June 13th, 1967 says that it was never ratified lawfully. Okay. But the 14th Amendment was only created to create a subclass of citizenship because the United States is not a country. It's a fucking corporation. Okay. It's always been a corporation, or at first it was a trust. Then after 1871, it became a corporation. Okay. It's not an actual country. It's not a thing. It was a trust created by the states. The states are your country. I've proven this ad nauseum in my work. If you had not watched it, go watch anything I've done on the 14th Amendment. It is so easily proven and not even up for discussion that the United States citizenship is an enfranchisement in order to make you collateral for the debt of a foreign corporation. And once you are collateral for that debt, because it's been your sweat equity, your estate that has been mortgaged, you are now under not only the arbitrary legislation of Congress, but also the arbitrary legislation of the corporate municipalities that can generate and hold bonds created under that citizenship contract. It's this, that's it. My country is Michigan. That's it. Nobody wonders why, like, okay, so think about it, right? Texas is bigger than England because it's a fucking country, okay? We were the first United Nations. We were the first EU. That's why they call the United States the Great Experiment. We were the first experiment world government, and we are the testing grounds of how they can take us over all over the world. But we had patriots, we had solid people on our side at the beginning that made sure we have what? Guns. You know why we didn't have drones making sure we weren't outside of our quarantine zone? Because we'll shoot them down. That's why. You know why we didn't have people coming into our house trying to force vaccinate our families? Well, it follows the same logic as the previous statement. So, that's it, right? And that's what's keeping them at bay, is that we are actually the power. They have to trick us through word magic to make us think that they're the power. But then when we are able by law to keep the actual power, which is lettucillin, right? Cures all your ailments. Some good old, a nice dose of lettucillin will cure all of your problems with my freedom. Okay, put it right to rest in the grave. No problem. Why do people not realize that? Why? Okay, so England is a country, right, with a king and queen. It's smaller than Texas. All right. That's because Texas is also a country. Every communist country, those are the most massive, expansive countries, Russia, China, right? Because what they have done is they've usurped the sovereignty of the many states that once composed that area. Well, guess what was the very first framework for that? The United States, the Civil War, and the 14th Amendment. They're like, well, shit, all we have to do is go stage a coup in these countries and then get some sort of centralized government to take over everything and promise peace after we've ravaged the area with war. Well, they figured out that formula, Civil War. Russia is a collection of former republics. That's why it used to be called the USSR. Same thing with China. The United States is not, can never, and will never be a country. It is a trust created by the countries that organized it for a specific purpose of dealing with other foreigners as part of a treaty, dealing with other foreign nations as a unified organization of countries known as Michigan, Virginia, New Jersey, New York, Hawaii, whatever. Those are all countries. They can only put you under this corporate tax cattle situation if you agree to be a United States citizen. What the fuck is even that? What it is a corporate enfranchisement. I know Zen at VSOF, Vocational Science of Freedom, he does fantastic work, can never knock the research that he's done. He's a great researcher, does great work. But when he says that the United States citizen is not a corporation, I entirely disagree. Because it's not just a corporation, and it's not just an estate, and it's not just a series of trusts created from that estate. It's all of those things. And because the United States itself is a corporation, then the United States citizen must necessarily be an enfranchisement. And I can show Supreme Court from back when we had the territories, like the Northwest Territory and all that stuff, right? I can show you where they talk about U.S. citizens being like up from the District of Columbia, living in the territories, uh, as corporate enfranchisements, or those who have existed in the territories and decided to opt for U.S. citizenship. They are corporate enfranchisements. They're called an elective franchise. That's literally what it's called in the paper. It's an elective franchise. You have one voter share in that company. That's what you have. You have one voter share. That's it. Okay. So if I bored everybody to death, I apologize. Let's get back to
the point that we discussed last night, where you don't advise people to not pay. And I do the same thing. People say, well, wait, you're saying it's a scam, but you're saying go ahead and pay it. And I like the way you summed it up.
Well, it's really fairly simple. I mean, since making that movie, many people come to me and ask me whether they should pay their income taxes or not, and I never advise people not to pay. And the reason I tell them, I said, look, I've done a lot.
That's actually a great point, and something that's one of the reasons I'm showing this tonight, is because I will never advise anybody to not comply. I will advise you to not comply, but here's, I guess, okay, so what they're saying and what I'm saying. Do not do it unless you know how. Unless you thoroughly understand. And listen, I'm not going to be able to, through osmosis, I'm not going to be able to transmit my knowledge and all the books and information I've taken in over the years. I'm not going to be able to, the paperwork I've written and the experiences, I'm not going to be able to put that in your head. I'm not going to. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to just be like, boom, this isn't the Matrix. You can't just be like, I know jujitsu, right? Not a thing. You have to learn it. So this is what they're about to say. You never want to come at these people unprepared. But if you are prepared to learn, right, and you actually learn enough to fight them, then you will be prepared to fight. That's the whole point. It's like, you're not just listening to some guy on YouTube or Rumble, right? Who's telling you how this works, or can even show you on Secretary of State from Colorado how it works. It does work. It fucking works. 100% it works. It works. My own experience, it works. Because it is what they're doing. Is you just reclaim your estate. They can no longer administer it. They're using trust law under the Magna Carta. Every state in this country is using the Magna Carta to enslave you right now. But the Magna Carta is a double-edged sword for them, because it also gives you the way out right in it. Just read it. The very first document, 1929, Michigan compiled laws. The very first document is the Magna Carta. Michigan created its probate court before it became a state, because this was the plan the entire time. Was, oh, most people are stupid, so all we have to do is create a society of peers, and then the peers can usurp the idiots' estates. Because what a peer is aristocracy. It's royal blood. We were all peers in this country, but obviously in name only, and they knew that. And they were able to very quickly use everyone's ignorance of the law to snap up their property and estates and put them in a state of enslavement. And that was the intention the entire fucking time. The entire time. That is what they, from my research, and I can prove conclusively, right? All the evidence I have strongly suggests that was the intention. That was the intention of the Magna Carta. That's why the Pope's guards of the king, right, the Pope's soldiers, just conveniently left, and all the clergy went on a conclave, and then the bishop, or not the bishop, the peerage knew to corner, the barons knew to corner King John at that time. There had been a series of uprisings prior to the writing of Magna Carta. Like, they knew that the barons were pissed and unhappy. They knew that given the opportunity, they would fucking, take things down. But they still left. And the barons didn't take things down. What they did was they offered a solution that mixed common law with Roman trust law. So that tells me two things. One, that they obviously didn't give a fuck about King John, the Romans, right? Two, that they had spoken to the barons, and three, that this was orchestrated because it's the same thing over 800 years later that they're using to buy bombs to hit Syria. They're using your social security. They created social security. That is the administration of your estate. That's what social security is. Social security, right? The securities, not security like your safety, the securities generated off the society of the United States, which they can only do through the administration of your trust. It's obvious. It's fucking obvious. It's like black and white to me. It's easy to see it. Okay. The whole intention, the entire time. Whole intention. And the only way they're able to do it is through your ignorance. So, sorry, I went on another diatribe there.
Research. The Supreme Court has ruled that the IRS has no authority. The 16th Amendment did not give the IRS the authority to tax your labor and your wages. That's a fact. All right, the Supreme Court is the law of the land, you know, and the IRS does not trump the Supreme Court. However, that being the case, the fact is, if the mafia would come to you and say, "We want $2,000 a month, that we're going to hurt you," I would not advise you not to pay them, because you may get hurt by not paying them. Whether it's legal or not doesn't necessarily matter. You're going to get hurt if you don't. It's the same thing with the IRS. They can hurt you. They can put you in jail. They can torture you. So if you don't pay them, you may get hurt. So I never advise people not to pay. You know, I tell people, yeah, pay your taxes.
What about the Congress? Finance?
Your congressman is a great example. Pay your taxes. But you know what? Shut down the Federal Reserve System, and eventually you won't have to pay those taxes anymore. See, the IRS is a symptom of the problem. The real problem is the banking industry and the bankers.
See right there, he's taken it. What I've done on this channel, and actually what Zen and other people like Viper and people like that did, what we've done, is we've taken it beyond shut down the Federal Reserve. No, you're not going to ever shut that down. Kennedy tried. Look what happened, right? What happened to Kennedy? Yeah. What was the last thing that ran through his mind? Bullet, right? Yeah. Hey, so you're never going to shut down the Fed. So what you do is you remove their source of funding. Well, what are our scumbags in suits and ties, right? These aristocrats from these royal bloodlines that have been running the shit, these fucking reptiles on Capitol Hill. What have they been doing the whole time? What do they use as collateral? What do you think the EPA is? Right? Well, there's only so much land and everything you can cordon off for quote unquote protection, which is actually security, right? For loans, right? That's the collateral. No, they're using you. You are the only renewable resource in this country that has not been entirely sold out. That's you. That's it. You're the only renewable resource that continues to generate that has been collateralized. So what we do is we remove their fucking source of funding by saying, hey, no, Congress, I'm not a United States citizen. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm a Michiganian, first of all. And Congress doesn't have fuck all to do with me. And they damn sure are not administering my estate. Okay? Because I'm the sole heir and executor of my estate. And nobody has a right to my property unless I've contracted with them. It's literally that easy. It goes all the way back to the Magna Carta. The entire Magna Carta is about trust law. The very first 10 articles are entirely about, actually, just like I'd say a solid 75% of the whole Magna Carta is about what to do when somebody dies intestate and their heir is not of age. Intestate means without a will, and the heir is not of age, then the court gets to administer that estate till the heir comes of age. They also get to decide when the heir has come of age, because come of age is not a number. It means you now know the law and know how to manage the fee that you've been given by the king. Well, here's the added layer of complexity for them in our country, which is great for us, is that we don't have fiefs here. We only now have fiefs because of the Torrens registry system. That's it. But other than that, all the land, like prior to the entrance into that, which was unlawful and we can all reverse very easily, uh, it's a lloydial title. It's a land patent issued by the president, 100% fact. And that's your land. Anybody, the sheriff comes on your land unwarranted, and he's subject to whatever you want to do if he doesn't follow your orders. That's it. It's a fact, 100% fact. I wouldn't sit up here and tell you it was if it was not. And I can prove it and have proven it. I just can't get on my SD card right now, so it'll have to be future. But I have proven it. Just watch older stuff. And so these people, so don't end the Fed, end Congress's believing that they're God, right? Let's bitch smack Congress back into the position of servant. And that only begins once we bitch smack the states back into position of servant. They're deathly afraid of you learning what I teach on this channel. You get a traffic ticket, file an at-law counterclaim, right? Of trespass on the case. You're trying to literally trespass on my estate and claim that you have some right to the use of my estate that doesn't exist. At-law counterclaim, boom, the prosecutor's going to get that. He may not know what the hell it means, but the judge will. And you'll be like, oh, fuck. And then you actually have to know how to finish it and not get lazy and just think, oh, yeah, I see it works because they got so scared. Now I don't have to do anything like other people I've helped. Like, that's not a thing. You know, you have to continue to learn. So the whole point in what they're saying about they wouldn't advise people to not, like, do not do this unless you know now how to fight. And if you do know how to fight, you'll definitely win, because what they're doing is absolute fraud and theft, and it's inland piracy. And they're doing it all with your agreement, which is why it's not criminal. It's crazy. But shall we get back to this? Sorry, another diatribe. I told you guys we wouldn't get more than a few minutes before I had to.
In this country, that's where the real problem lies. That's the root of our problem. That's why we've lost America. Okay, so yeah, pay your taxes, because if you don't pay them, you might get hurt. And I've heard all the arguments, what tax protesters say, and so on and so forth. And I don't call them tax protesters. I call them the tax honesty movement. They're being honest.
He's right.
At least. But the fact of the matter is, you're being forced. You're being compelled to pay it because you're facing jail sentences. You're facing time. You're facing corruption in the courts if you don't pay. Right? And so you pay it. Just like you pay the mafia. But with the mafia, at least you have the government to call and try and help you to get past the mafia, to protect you. Here you have nobody to protect you. The American people are living in a matrix. They don't understand the truth of how things are working in this.
That what he said, at least with the mafia, you have the government to help you. Well, that's why the government is the mafia, because they've created that condition in your mind that you need somebody to help you. This whole administration scheme of your estate is based on dependency. If you are not self-sufficient, then you are a beneficiary. And beneficiary, or was it beneficium abstinende? The beneficiary forgoes the inheritance in exchange for a small portion of the estate because he does not want to administer it. He doesn't want to be the heir. So he's going to take a small portion or a benefit from the estate, which includes going to jail. In our current society, they actually consider that a benefit because you're a infant minor pauper and you need to be taught how to be a man so that you can claim your estate. That's how they look at this shit. I'm not even kidding you. Going to jail is a benefit, right? And they're trying to compel you to take that benefit. But beneficium abstinende, right? He who accepts the benefit forgoes the inheritance. And they have inculcated this idea, and this goes back to my argument with my fucking dumbass scumbag father. He like literally doesn't understand what I'm trying to say about the government. Is like, dude, we're not dependent on them. What we need them to do is what they were always designed to do, which is to keep us from being taken over by a foreign power from the inside out, right? Because no foreign power is actually going to invade us. Emperor Hirohito in World War II said he would never invade the United States, right? And that's the Emperor of Japan, because behind every blade of grass, there will be an American with a gun, right? So they're not going to physically fucking invade us. What they're going to do is try to undermine us from the inside out because we have guns. That's why. Okay? And that's exactly what was happening. And it probably still is happening. For sure. But what I'm saying is we dodged a bullet with that, and he doesn't understand that shit. And they're not your leader. They're not your leader. They work for you. In fact, the federal government, when we talk about Donald Trump, he's the grandkid of the people as president. He's the grandchild. The state should be keeping him in line. So every time you watch him going around telling the states what to do, it should irritate you. But do you know why he's able to do that and why he had to do that? And also why we should be grateful that he did do that. Because we don't have the states under control, which is part of their psychological operation. They're like, okay, we'll fix it from top down. We cannot let them do this. We have to learn the law. We've bought time, but that's all we've done. We bought time, but that's it. We have to learn the law, and it's very simple. You have man's what he calls law, which is statute and code, and deals only in commerce. That's it. And then you have the law, which historically, throughout history, for thousands of years, both the leaders and the common people have known that man does not create law. The law exists independently. What separates the common people from the leaders and being able to live prosperously under this fact is their inability to produce, whether that be through oppression, intentional, engineered oppression to create class systems, right? Because it's hard to be free when you got to go work for somebody, isn't it? Of course, right? And that's we have to start looking at this problem in its real sense. Okay? We absolutely have to start looking at it how it actually exists. And they're intentionally trying to keep you dependent. It's the biggest thing. We're not dependent on the government to protect us from mafia. Because guess what? The government is the fucking mafia. It has been the whole time. It's the most gangster fucking mafia that's ever existed. It's ever done it. Ever. Right? We need to get back into the position that the founders had seen as and I agree with them, as the only temporal solution to this problem, and we have to be more gangster than the government. We have to make the government work for us again. Because unless you can get everybody in the world to not want to conquer each other, pillage each other, take advantage of each other for resources and money, unless you can get everybody in the world to agree on that, like, hey, let's just do our own thing, be farmers and live under common law, then you're going to need a government. Because I'll bring this point up again. Even if you've got everybody in this country on the same page, and everybody's like, yeah, common law don't hurt anybody, we don't really need government, so let's abolish that and all that, right? And then guess what's going to happen with China? China, whose people would never even have the privilege of thinking the words I just said, right? Because their phones can probably fucking read their minds. And then they'll have George Orwell thought police come in, snatching them up in the middle of the night for even thinking that you can not have a government. Well, these people are going to see weakness over here. I don't agree with it, and I do know it was engineered intentionally, but at the same time, it is the world we live in. So we have to create realistic solutions here. And the only realistic, true solution is you picking up some fucking books and fighting back with the actual law. That's it. It's the only solution. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to look at the comments because I'm working with a single screen.
And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The very fact is that if you ask 100 people on the street, what kind of government is America supposed to be? 99% of them will tell you a democracy. America is supposed to be a democracy. But that's a lie. That's an illusion. The word democracy is not written into the.
I was saying what RF said was true. Yeah, democracy, we're not a democracy. That's not true. We're a constitutional republic. There is no enslavement of the many over the few. Okay, it means you have your natural rights and you are only subject to what you contract to be subject to. Or you are subject to your peers if you injure somebody else financially or physically. Okay, that's yeah. So yeah, we're not a democracy. It's not a fucking thing.
Constitution at one time. It's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. The founding fathers hated the idea of a democracy. They thought it was the worst form of government there is. And I agree with them. Because in a democracy, 51% of the people control 49% of the people. If you're part of the 49%, you're not free. America was founded as a constitutional republic. And in that constitutional republic that we have, 99% of the people can't take away the rights of 1%. You have your rights because you were born with them. You have God-given human rights that nobody can take away from you. The government, the majority, no matter who they are, I can't take away your rights. And that's what our founding fathers gave us. But the psychological operations that
Well, right there, the psychological operation's still working on them because you said that's what our founding fathers gave us. No, it's not. It's what they recognized and enshrined in document that's up to us to protect. Like Lysander Spooner, I agree with his views for the most part, but when he starts blaming the Constitution for its ineptitude, that's where I disagree. But it was never on the Constitution to actually enforce itself. It's on us. It always has been. And in fact, the Constitution was a subversive document in the first place. It was the Articles of Confederation that we were really created under, right? But the Constitution is a more perfect double-edged sword for the dark side to use against us, and hoping that we do not become knowledgeable to be able to use the other side of the sword against them, which is what I try to do on this channel, is to make people aware of that other side of the sword, right? So the whole Constitution was passed like the Patriot Act. Okay. They, behind closed doors, people didn't like it, didn't matter. They had armed sentries outside. Nobody was allowed to know what was going on, and no records were even released till 60 years after the Constitutional Convention. So, yeah, they needed that judiciary to be created and be put in a place of power. And they needed, but still, that wasn't enough because you and I are above the judiciary in the form of a grand jury, especially, but even just if you file an at-law counterclaim. They have no judicial immunity since they moved completely into the commercial sector. They have zero sovereignty and zero judicial immunity because they are private companies doing business with other international private companies, even the Supreme Court at this point. They all have Dun and Bradstreet numbers. They're all private corporations. It's an absolute cesspool of just commercial fornication. That's it. It's 100%.
they do to us. They make us believe that we're a democracy and that majority rules. You see? And they want you to believe that. Because then they tell you this poll says this many want this and this many want that and this many want this, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Hitler was elected.
Hitler was elected. Hitler did everything legally.
And in a constitutional republic, a minority is protected against the majority. Wasn't it Benjamin Franklin paraphrased that said, democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for better?
Exactly. And then he also said, in a republic, the sheep would have a gun to protect themselves. You know, and that's the truth. America is not a democracy, but U.S. the most intelligent people. What form of government America is supposed to be? They'll say democracy. That's what they've been brainwashed. They've been psyoped into believing that. They believe that we're in Iraq. They believe we're in Iraq to promote democracy. The word democracy, you hear George Bush saying democracy means freedom. No. Democracy equals New World Order. Democracy equals slavery. The word democracy is not synonymous with freedom. It's the opposite of freedom. Democracy is the worst form of government you can have. It's majority rule. And the government can tell you exactly what they want to tell you to do.
Well, democracy is grade 1 communism. So democracy always will proceed into socialism, which is where we are right now and have been since Roosevelt. 100%. We're we're more socialist. Well, we're at least as socialist as Canada. In fact, we, back being the global reserve quote unquote currency founded on the sweat equity of the mortgage of our estates, we're the backbone of Canada's socialism, right? And even the backbone of China's communism, right? But democracy is always the first, exactly what he's saying. It's always the first step on the slippery slope to communism. Okay. And the main reason for that is the exact thing I'm maybe with futility trying to war against, but is the ignorance of the average public. Because if you make the decisions, of course, why wouldn't the government want the decisions to be made by the average public who are fucking stupid, okay, and only care about creature comforts and entertainment so that you can get them to get a shot with a fucking hamburger, right? That's a like Jim Brewer does, fucking like a Sue who wants to go to school, or who wants to go to work, or, right? Because they're dumb. So if you get the majority of people are dumb. So if you can make it so the majority of people control the minority of people who historically have always been, you know, like the smart are a minority, and then you can control your opposition and also basically take control of the whole world. That's what democracy is. That's why the founder said democracy is the worst form of government known to man. It's the worst. Why would you let uneducated idiots be able to? Everybody has to be honest, and I know some people are going to be like, well, everybody should be able to vote. No, they shouldn't. No, they should not. First of all, the government shouldn't have any influence over my personal property or rights, my natural rights, which would make it not matter. Nobody else would care if they could vote or not unless they can control me. That's the only reason they want to vote, is because they think they can control me. If you take that, so if you go, okay, so the government can't control anyone, but you guys can vote. How much are they going to care? Not very much. It's only when you create this slave indenture system, this corporate tax cattle system through the 14th Amendment and the administration of your estate, that these idiots that you gas up with all your fucking MK Ultra propaganda and mind control programming think that it's a good idea to be able to impose their affected air of virtuoso and knowing how the world should work, and everybody should be this way and everybody should, and you're a fucking retard, right? But now you can vote under this indenture system to change my life, right? So here's the two things that I know I probably confused some people, but here's the two things, the 2 points of that is: one, not everybody should vote. You should not be able to vote. And it wasn't always that way. Like, no, you don't get a vote. But the reason why you shouldn't care that you don't get a vote is because even if you could vote, it's not supposed to control me or you. It's supposed to determine economic policy regarding trade between states, trade within the state, trade with other nations. Like, it has nothing to do with, you can't all of a sudden charge me a property tax. You can't tell me that I have to wear a helmet riding a bicycle. None of that shit. That's not on the table in a republic. None of that's on the table. You can't tell me to put a seatbelt on in my car. None of that is on the table in a republic. You can't vote for or against it. So once you remove that aspect of control, most of these retards don't even care that they can't vote. That's how stupid they are. They only want to vote to try to control you and make you do their retarded shit. That's it. Right? How many people in the chat agree with that?
The majority wants it. I don't care what the majority wants. I live my life as I choose. And if I don't commit violence, theft, or fraud against another human being, I can live my life as I wish. That's my choice. And I'm allowed to make mistakes. Because when you make mistakes, you learn from them. You grow as a human being. We're put on this earth to become the best individuals we can be, to fulfill our God-given potential. Right? We're not here to put on this earth so the government can tell us how to live our lives and what we must do. We put into these systems and these paradigms. No, the same thing in health. You know, if you're sick, you have to have a certain protocol. Nonsense. You know, be individuals, think for yourself, have critical thinking. You know, and so what's happened is that because they've taught everybody that we're a democracy, which is not true. Now, so then, in 1913, they bring the Federal Reserve System into being, right? And now you have this Federal Reserve System, which in 1913 got the right to create money for the government. When before that, the government created its own money.
See, this
Now,
is where he shows his glaring ignorance. Now he was offered, so people who have not seen this interview, and honestly I'm only going to go for about another half hour, so we probably won't finish it, and I don't know how much into the meat, the actual, because even believe it or not, what we've watched is not the meat of this interview at all. But he shows his ignorance of the way it works, and which is fine. He came up from the money side of it. He's a Jewish guy. I don't know if you guys know that Aaron Russo is a Jew. He's Jewish, and he turned on the establishment, and he doesn't realize that it wasn't just in 1913. So the entire history of this country is trying to get out from under the central bank. We fought the Revolutionary War because the Bank of England imposed the Currency Act on the colonists and told them they couldn't make their own currency that was interest free. And that goes into the law of how colonies work, by the way, as well. Like, colonies are basically franchises that are just supposed to pay, certain tribute to the mother country, not necessarily be directly controlled in the way that they tried to do with the Currency Act. But it was because the colonies were becoming so prosperous, being able to print colonial script without interest on the script, that the Bank of England pressured Parliament to pass the Currency Act, which Benjamin Franklin in his autobiography writes about how that was the cause of the Revolutionary War. Then the War of 1812 was because we did not renew the First Bank of the United States. We didn't renew their charter in 1811, and Nathan Rothschild got pissed. And then guess what happened? The war ended after we renewed their charter. Then you have Andrew Jackson, introduced the great hero of the Republic, Andrew Jackson, who may have killed an Indian or two, whatever. History's full of conquest. Okay, so, and we're fighting against ours right now, and it's a global conquest. So I'm not going to shame him for, his time, or even, how do I even know it's true what we're taught, right? But what I do know about Andrew Jackson was he ran on the platform of get rid of that same central bank that so people don't realize in 1811 or 1812, Andrew Jackson fought in the War of 1812 as a young officer. He was captured. Most of his family died in that war, and he was tortured by the British as a POW. Okay? So he didn't have a lot of love for, and unlike today, where everything is news media propaganda bullshit, everybody actually knew why things were going on back then. So, like, the American people knew that was a bankers' war. The politicians knew that was a bankers' war. Everyone knew what was going on. He had no love for the British or for the banks, because that's ultimately who controlled the British. So when he ran for president, he ran on the platform, vote for Jackson, I'll kill the bank. Right? Or no, I'm sorry. It's vote for Jackson and no bank. That was actually the moniker, I believe. And if I'm wrong, correct me. But that same thing, though. That's what you're saying. You said, I'm going to kill the bank, so vote me in. And he was the first president in American history to go around and actually campaign directly to the people. Now, that might not seem unusual to you, but that was incredibly unusual for the time, because guess what? The people within the states did not give a fuck about who was president, because it has nothing to do with them, because you're not a United States citizen. Okay? They cared about their county first and foremost, and then they cared about their state. And then outside of that, what you did to elect presidents, and I know this from Michigan's own historical documents, is you voted for an elector in your county. And each county elector would then go vote for which president. And so you voted for your elector based on who they were and how you felt they would vote for the president. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter, because the president could never do anything to you unless you went on federal property, nor could Congress. It didn't fucking matter. It wasn't a big deal. Like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's a big deal in the sense of you want a good president to deal with foreign leaders and to regulate trade within the states and all that stuff, right? But even the regulation was up to Congress. So like the president was really just kind of like a figurehead in a lot of ways, unless we were at war. So for Jackson to actually go to the people, that's how serious of a problem he recognized it as. And he went to the people within the states and said, hey, you need to make me the president. He won overwhelmingly. And on top of that, the central bankers dumped millions of dollars into his opponent, Henry Clay, okay, which is back in the 1800s. So think about millions, right? Think about that. Back in the 1800 millions. Millions is a lot today. Think what it was back then. Okay. And Jackson still won. In his first term, he routed out most of the banker agents in the federal and state governments, right? Well, the federal, actually, not state. I misspoke because he had no control over the states because that's how the law worked, right? But he routed out the bank's agents in the federal government. And then his second term, he finished kicking them out. And on his deathbed, he was asked, what is your life's greatest accomplishment? And he says, I killed the bank. That's what this guy says when he's about to die. His last words, well, I don't know if he died immediately, but his last words to the world in general when he was visited by a publication was, what's your greatest accomplishment? I killed the bank. Took them 70 years to recover from Jackson's ass whooping. 70 fucking years to recover from Jackson's ass whooping, which I always like that. And Jackson was a Mason, so take that for what you will, right? 70 years. And the next time, like just to get the Federal Reserve, they had to sink the fucking Titanic and kill fucking John Astor, who owned 40% of the mortgages in the United States. You people need to learn money and you need to learn law. If you learn just law without learning money and how money works, never going to learn law, because it's, again, goes back to property. That's all law deals with property, and property is the absolute expression of one of the people, of a man or woman's free will. That's what property is. You only acquire property as a result of your will, and the property is acquired for the use of your will. And what do we always learn about? What did God give us? Right? Why does God not control everything and make us all behave as soon? Because we all have free what? Will. Which I hope will does get out soon, because everybody's always talking about freeing him. But I'm sorry, that was a dad joke. A little bit. Anyway, let's get back to a little bit more of this.
Now the government, when it needed money, had to borrow from this private bank called the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank owned by individuals, incorporated in Delaware. And so what happens is now the government borrows money from them to fund the government. And the government says, well, we have to pay these people interest. How are we going to pay them interest? Let's impose a tax on the labor of the American people, which never existed before, to pay the interest of the bankers.
In fact, in 1980, Ronald Reagan said not one red cent of your income tax money goes from the country, all goes to the Federal Reserve.
Well, report that said that not one nickel goes to the infrastructure of the country. You know,
Reagan quoted that.
right. And so, but the point I'm trying to make is that by creating this Federal Reserve system, the government now became dependent on these private banks for money, and they started taxing us. You see, and so now what happens is that in 35, I believe it was, Social Security started, and they gave you Social Security cards, said not to be used for identification, the Social Security number right on the card, right? And through Social Security, they started deducting money out of your paycheck. That was the first time they were ever take money out of your paycheck, because people agreed to it because it goes to the retirement fund.
So two things. Of course, apparently we're not going to get very far in this video tonight. There will be a part 2. But also, if you guys want me to do Satanic Experiment Part 2 and look into Candace's producer and everyone who went into that stuff, I will do an entire deep dive. and we will present what I found within a couple weeks. If you guys just leave comments, hit thumbs up, anyone who's watching this stuff, just go ahead, post production, whatever. Let me know if you guys want me to do that, because I'm itching to do it, but I know my audience isn't really geared towards that community. I share some because of my douchebag father, but outside of that, I know like most people are here for law. But what I wanted to touch on, hold on, I'm sorry, we got a troll in here, Lazarus. This guy, it's never been in a courtroom. I did 6 years in prison, you stupid fucker. In fact, David Lambert was in there with me, so suck a fat dick. How's that sound? Anyway, the what he's talking about right here isn't, it's well, you know what, here, let's let him finish the thought and then we'll come back to it.
And so then when they institute income tax again, they start taking money out of your paycheck because Social Security could do it. And then they could do it again. You see what I'm saying?
And so now they've even taken control of the tax, the tax payment itself. I mean, we really like you're a slave. They're taking it right there when you make it.
Exactly.
They don't even trust the public enough to
send them a check.
themselves.
Right. They take it out automatically because they know people aren't going to want to pay.
Dude, it's a cattle system. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. It is literally, and it all goes back to the one word we need to drive into everyone who watches this. Like, you need to understand this word, e-state. Look up the word e-state in Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856, right? I believe. Anyway, whatever that dictionary here is, I have it. He's got like a 1830 something, whatever. But the word estate is literally a large portion of the letter E. Like it's expansive, and essentially what the substantive definition of estate is everything that you own in law. Okay, and then so you have E state is everything that you own or have interest in at law. And then status, status is your relationship to everything you own. Okay, what do I mean by that? Who knows? Write it in the comment. I mean, I'm going to answer it, but write it in the chat. Write a comment. Tell me if you know what I mean by status in relation to e-state. The e-state is how Lucifer looks at you. Okay, it's how the system looks at you. You are a net worth. You always have been. Everyone always has been. Before we had, and who knows if even what we're taught about history is real. Maybe they always had. Maybe everything we see about like the straw villages and the using fire and lantern, who knows how long ago that actually was, or if it's a thing or what it is, right? We don't know any of that stuff, but what we do know is law. In the East, because they can't change it, they have to follow it, they have to use it to control you, okay? And so it cannot change, it has to build upon itself. That's why I tell people who are learning law or learning history, learn the law of the period that you're trying to learn in history, and you'll learn the history. It's the only way that you'll actually get an accurate understanding, because they cannot change it. It's built on itself. So to give you guys an idea, Magna Carta 1215, okay, the founding documents for the territories of the United States before they became states, like the Northwest Ordinance, an exact replica of the Magna Carta. They have to follow this stuff. Okay, they have to follow it. And the reason they have to follow it is because they cannot violate your free will. So we hear people all the time talking about, predictive programming, manufactured consent. They show you what's going to happen because they have to. They do, actually. That's true. And the only way they've been able to take your Social Security account and use it to buy missiles and tanks and jets and all this stuff is because they've taken control of something that you have no idea exists. Right? The very first Indiana state constitution talks about the very first governor, who they had no idea who it was going to be, because the Constitution was written to create the office of governor. They said he had to use his private seal if he did not have a public seal in the interim on all the documents. And that seal is the seal of his house. That's how law works. That's how it works. The house is the very first political subdivision. Okay? It's the very first political subdivision. And then a collection of houses become a village or a town or whatever you want to call it, right? And then a collection of towns become a county. And then a collection of counties become a state. And the state is actually the country. And that's where it stops. That's where people get fucked up. That's where the one world, new world order government shit comes in to rear its ugly head, is to try to convince you that the concept of states belonging to a nation is normal. It's not fucking normal. No, that's called like the European Union. That's another example of what the United States is. That is they're the grandchild. Okay, so comment in the chat if you do not understand what I'm saying, and I will elucidate that point forward. But let's get back into this a little bit more, because once we get to the interview with Nick Rockefeller, it gets very deep.
So what's happened is that through the implementation of the Federal Reserve System, the government has become invested in these bankers, and they get the money from the bankers. And so then they impose a tax on us, which makes us more slaves, makes it more difficult for us to survive, right? Giving them more profits. And now what's happened is that through the Federal Reserve System, the bankers have pretty much taken control of our government. It doesn't matter Republican and Democrat anymore, because they're both the same.
He's not understanding that they created the 14th Amendment to give the federal government collateral, to allow the federal government to usurp the citizenry of the states in creating a United States citizen, which theretofore had not existed. And that's in Andrew Johnson's veto messages of the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which he both refused because it gave the federal government the ability to make citizens without the states. But the federal government is not anything. It's a trust. And it was given 10 square miles of property to operate out of, called the District of Columbia. It's not a country. How can it make citizens? It's not. What is that? You have to contract to be a member of that organization. It's not. That's what he's missing.
One of them are talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve System or stopping the payment of taxes. You know,
you guys will be happy to know I was just notified that I'm streaming, so that's good. That it was only how long? Like what? 2 hours? 2 hours and 4 minutes? That's good.
The big issues that face Americans, right? So I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, okay, who was one of the Rockefeller family, and he, when I was running for governor in Nevada, he came to me, introduced himself to me through an attorney, and we became friends. We started talking about things, and I learned an awful lot from Mr. Rockefeller. And one of the things that we used to talk about was the ultimate plan of the banking industry, what they wanted to accomplish. And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks. And they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. You know, central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time, we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there, you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has
Okay, so let's break this down. All right, let's break it down for you guys. Okay, like he said, they're all one central bank. There is no separation from one central bank to another. They're all Deutsche Bank and whatever bank in France, Bank of England, Federal Reserve. They're all headed up by the Bank of International Settlements and the IMF, who's more like the accounting aspect of the banking system, keeps the ledgers. Now, understand, in the 60s and 70s, they had people going around called economic hitmen. So the people that weren't big enough, the countries that weren't big enough to have a central bank, they had to make sure they were enslaved to the existing central banking system. So they'd go down and they'd say, hey, you guys could use some infrastructure, like some, power lines and some street lights and some dumpster services and some all this stuff. And, hey, we're willing to provide that and create this infrastructure for you, but you're going to have to take out a loan from the World Bank. This is Dave Perkins. Read his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right? Or Diary of an I think it's Confessions. But Dave Perkins, look him up. Great book. Read it a long time ago. Read the whole thing. So they go down there and they'd say, hey, you need this infrastructure and we're willing to give it to you. You just need to accept this loan from the World Bank. Okay. And most leaders would be like, yeah, sounds good. Because the real fact of the matter was they were selling their country out for a small fortune for their family, but the country becomes horribly indebted to foreign central banking interests. And then whatever resources, say like they have Chiquita bananas, right? Or even cocaine or whatever they have. Now the central bankers are going to be able to leverage the debt against them to get that resource for almost nothing. And that existed as an auxiliary component to the major corporate infrastructure of developed nations. So now they leverage that debt to get the materials the corporations that had set up shop in the major developed nations needed to fuck the workers and producers of products of those nations out of their money and destroy their economic power. Okay. Why would I buy bananas from a farmer in, I don't even know if they grow them in Florida, but let's say oranges. Why would I buy oranges from a farmer in Florida when I've now economically leveraged this Central American country to give me their oranges for pennies on a dollar? Right? Yeah, boom. So you destroy all the, and this is a massive, intricate, sophisticated, unbelievably sophisticated plot to economically enslave the entire world. Now, another point that we're going to bring up on this is that a central bank is needed in all countries to indenture the people, because if the people fund the government, right, who pays you? Everybody, I assume, who watches my channel goes to work, right? So your boss pays you, right? So you listen to your boss, right? You listen to who pays you. That's what you have to do at work. It's like, well, I think you're an idiot. I don't agree with the way you're doing things, but you write my check, so I'm going to do it this way because you pay me. Okay? That's, yeah. So what they've done is taken that to the macroeconomic level, right? And made it so that the people no longer fund their own governments. It's international corporations through banks that fund your government through central banks. And here's the added caveat, the icing on the cake, if you will, right? Is that you are the security. What they even tell you, Social Security. You are the security for the loans they get from this private third-party bank. It's like, yeah, okay, so you need this loan. What value do you have? Well, after our last bankruptcy, well, not our last one, but the big one, 1933, say, well, yeah, I guess all our collateral is actually used up. We have no more lands we can cordon off, and we have no more, well, actually, no, that'd be in the 70s. So they started cordoning off lands between the 30s to the 90s, basically. And that's what the EPA agenda is all about. It's not about protecting the environment, it's about protecting the collateral for the loans that they're getting from not you. And whoever pays your government is who they listen to. If you don't pay your government to exist, you're not in control of it. It's that simple. You are not in control of it if you don't pay it. Period. Because you're not its boss. They don't care. In fact, what they've done is they've switched the whole role around and said, okay, you know what? We're going to go ahead and wrangle up our citizens as collateral to get loans from you. Our fucking masters at the central banks, right? So they say, well, what collateral do you have? And they say, well, we have the future productive value of the only renewable resource left in this country, which is people. That's what your birth certificate is. It's that simple. It's basic economics. People who can't see it by this point, they frustrate me, but I try to keep explaining it in simple terms. And am I speaking a foreign fucking language? Am I speaking Spanish on this show right now? Is that what I'm doing? You know what I mean? You are the resource that backs the loans that your country gets to commit atrocities in your name. Period. And I've explained exactly how they've taken control of your estate. But if I was to put it simply in 2 words, you're stupid. You don't fucking know how to be self-sufficient. You think you're owed something. Now, I'm not talking to my subscribers, but I'm talking to any wayward person who might come across this channel and not know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, you you have been completely hijacked for your productive value because you have no idea how to be self-sufficient. You're dependent either directly on the government through food stamps or wealth or some sort of welfare health program, which is why they built wealth up. Why do you think they built food, drug, and health up at the same time? And that was Carnegie and Rockefeller did that shit. They built them all up at the same time. We're going to make you sick. We're going to develop a health care system, we'll call it, right, which is meant to keep you sick. And then, right, it's like the same way that a farmer takes care of cattle. Simply your cattle. That's it. Does anybody disagree with what I just said? Yes, Brad and Tasha, I will explain this as soon as I get my I'm not kidding you guys. They crashed I'm on my wife's laptop. They crashed my shit. Luckily, I saved both my paperwork and all of you remember, because right after they attacked archive.org, they hit my shit and they probably hit a bunch of other people like me. I guarantee it. All of our stuff down, but I have everything backed up, and also it's in my head. And yes, I will explain how to do that. Tonight, I do not have the documents to show you. My wife does not have an SD card reader on her gaming laptop, and all of my stuff is on an SD card. But yes, I am absolutely going to show you guys, because we need to make warriors, and you can't be half-hearted about doing this either. And that's the most important thing. So I've actually been floating the idea. Now, I don't like to charge anybody for anything, and that's not my thing. But one added benefit of charging people for stuff is that they're serious. So if I did like a $5 membership for classes where we actually get serious about this, because when you throw it out into the aether of just, people, like, I've had so many emails, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? And it's like nobody's actually serious. I'm like, okay, hey, I'll hit you up, give me your number, I'll help you for free, no problem. But so now I'm starting to see that the money thing is a way to get serious people. And I don't want the money. That's not why I'm not saying it for that reason, but it's like if people invest in it, then they tend to take it more seriously themselves. Outside of that, no, I told it's the only way the problem's gonna be fixed. It is. It's the only way the problem's gonna be fixed, so that's a fact. Let's watch a little bit more of this, and then, I'm probably gonna have to shut it down for the evening, and we will pick this up, though. If I have to use my wife's laptop next week, I am in the process of getting mine, accessing my information, and, you know I don't I do not could be by next weekend, maybe. It could be. It could be. But I would probably say the weekend after next.
An RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is giving me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes.
So just to bring up a brief point, this was well before WeChat, right? Or any of that shit they have in China. That's exactly what they're doing in China. So they have this one, and Elon Musk, who I like him to a certain degree, and then also correctly mistrust him to a greater degree because of the same reasons everyone else does, right? So, um, not a bad judge of character. Totally put out too many satanic vibes for me to be comfortable with, but uh X is talking about making their shit like WeChat. So WeChat is an app in China that totally encompasses everything. Everything. So it's an app that has all your other apps, your banking, your dining, your anything that you do. Use just this one app. So really you could more correctly, if you're technologically familiar with the term, call this app basically like an operating system on top of the operating system, right? And it has all your information, everything, your social media, your banking, everything, right? Now, in China, if you jaywalk across the street, they have cameras that have facial recognition. Well, the government already has a back door into your central app, WeChat. So let me stop dramatizing this. And so, what happens is you jaywalk in China, facial recognition camera catches your face, says, "Hey, this is Hung Lo," right, or whatever. That'd be my name. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just Hung Lo from China, right, from Hong Kong, and he just jaywalked. And it's going to send that information. It's all going to communicate with itself. And then immediately, pretty much immediately, within a second or two, you are going to be fined. This is a fact. Look it up. You're fined for the jaywalking immediately, as soon as it happens. No trial, no question, no nothing, nothing. Just done. Taken right out of your fucking account immediately. And then Elon Musk was like, "Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We should set up to get the fuck out of here." That's a good way to get a massive dose of lettucillin. I don't want to do that to you, Elon, but that's how that works. That's the remedy for that is lettucillin, which I seen Mike Smith earlier say I can't copyright that. That's Steve Inman. That's why I actually told you guys go check that guy. He's fucking hilarious. Steve Inman on X. Absolutely check him out. Hilarious. Fucking hilarious. And you don't feel bad about watching the horrible stuff. You know why? Because they're scumbags. Like usually if you see somebody, get relieved of their temperature, it's usually because they're absolute horrible scumbags. And so it's nothing bad about it. Check it out. It's hilarious.
They just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip, and you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
Everything,
you sell.
everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips and they control people. And you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
More than a decade.
Ethan, I'm sorry. I just had to bring this. I seen your comment over there. I had to bring this up because I respect your intelligence, and we've had good discourse in the past. And I'm just, you know. So here's the thing. Like, I know what Elon is, right? So there's a certain, and one thing most normies will never understand is there's a certain amount of compromise at the top because of what reality and nature is. You know, but he just seems to lean way too hard. And I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, right? Because, like, you know, genuinely, the fact that I can go on X and just see, with like, you're not choosing what I can see on X to a certain degree. There's not no like crazy shit or pedo shit or none of that shit on X, but like, you know, other than that, it's completely unfiltered 100%. I appreciate that, but at the same time I look into his family, and I just need to do more research on him because like his family they're sketchy technocrats, absolutely super sketchy technocrats. And I said this as soon as he started coming in and doing what he's been doing. And I'm like, yeah, okay, is this damage control? And it could be damage control. And if it is, well, it'll ultimately end up being some sort of compromise between what they wanted and what they could get away with, which is better than the full thing. But yeah, I don't think, I just, he never actually created any of the companies that he runs. I don't know if people have ever researched Elon Musk, but he never created one single company that he runs today. He usurped it, basically. Which is not, you know, I get it's business, so maybe he's a business genius, which I do think he is. He's absolutely brilliant in business, but you know, when you're in one breath talking about the dangers of AI, which I'm starting to think is like the nuke. It's just it's bullshit. I think that they've created a supercomputer, something that can extrapolate the ultimate end of an input of data, but I don't think they have something that thinks for itself. But they want people to believe it is, because maybe what is that, like the alien thing? You know, because it would be like an alien. It'd be like an alien we created, right? We created this thing that's smarter than us, right? But that's not the case. It's not, because you can use Chat GPT or any of these other in different countries, and you get different answers based on whatever political propaganda is being put forth in that country. And that tells me that it's data driven. So it's responsive, it's not creative. You know, but again, I digress. Apologize. Yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, he could be. It's always possible. In the same way that they're not faking Antarctica, it's always possible that you know, it's a real thing. And so I do have to keep that in my wheelhouse, just because I would be one of the crazies if I didn't. You have to keep all possibilities. Like you can't dismiss something without evidence. So
A decade ago, I began getting secret government documents, and we published them.
An event,
nobody cares.
and them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips and they control people, and you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
Yes.
More than a decade ago, I began getting secret
Take your
government
money out for
documents, and we
jaywalking.
published them, where the feds were training the local police.
And
demonizing Ron Paul. People that want gun owners are part of that number one
I
threat. The
really
people
don't.
buying ammo are the number one threat. Think about this. You have these private bankers overthrowing the
Before 9/11 ever happened, that there was going to be an event. Never told them what the event was going to be.
That's Nick Rockefeller. He's
But there was
saying.
going to be an event. And out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East.
Well, that's the whole funny thing. You guys realize that this entire Middle East campaign was set forth in the late 80s. Iran has always been a huge target on there. It's the Greater Israel Project, man. It's what it is. And they need absolute domination and control of the Middle East because it's the only other large petroleum producing. So the whole idea was taken to its fundamentals, which is what geniuses do. You take it to its foundation, and they're like, what do we need control of to control humanity? We need control of energy. Well, we have all this free energy right now. We're talking about when they originally came up with the idea, and that would be in probably the 17 to 1800s. And we look at all the World Fair stuff and all this. Well, we need control of energy. That's how we'll control nations. Well, we need to get rid of this understanding of electromagnetism. Okay, so boom, done. Remove the aether, which, if anybody, I don't know why people struggle with that. It's the electromagnetic superfluid substance that connects everything in existence. It's literally that simple. It's what it is. It's everything is electromagnetism. We manifest as man and woman, right? Like everything, you go to plug a plug into a wall, that's electromagnet. It's female, male, boom, right? Everything's electromagnet. It's one of the 7 laws, principles of creation, Hermetic philosophy, and nothing in Hermetic philosophy regarding the 7 laws can be invalidated, and they're all dynamic with one another. It's so fucking simple. So you say, take control of energy. Well, we can't because they know about electromagnetism. Well, what we have to do is make them stupid. Boom. Okay? Make them stupid. Now make them think that they need this gas or oil to create energy, right? Well, that's not good enough. Now, let's make them think that this stuff comes from a non-renewable resource. And at the same time, we can reinforce the idea of evolution and globalism while we create this idea of a non-renewable energy. That's how multifaceted this. You're dealing with the fucking devil, guys. I don't know how to put it I can only see it. I could never come up with it. It's fucking brilliant. Okay? And just because I'm not being narcissistic and saying just because I couldn't come up with it, nobody else. I don't think any human on the planet could come up with something that complex and multifaceted. And I don't think any of my viewers would disagree with that. Like, who the fuck would come up with this? And it's so fucking brilliant and perfect. Oh, yeah, you're dependent on this for energy, even though we had this other, wireless electromagnetic stuff that we can reproduce today with magnets and copper, right? Yeah, we had that, right? But now you need this oil from the ground, and it comes from these imaginary fucking magical beasts that we just made up. And they're continuing. It's like Pokemon. There's more dinosaur now. Like, so when I used to be a Pokemon fan, I don't know how many of my viewers were, but there was 151 Pokemon. Or 150, I think. Then they introduced Mew and Mewtwo. Then you had 152, right? But then they were like, why stop there? You can just have as many as you fucking want because we're in imagination land. That's what they're doing with dinosaurs. Same thing. Imagination land. Okay? Like South Park. We can have as many as we want, and guess what? They don't exist anymore, and so that what their bones turned into somehow turned into a flammable fucking oil. It doesn't even make sense. But It's non-renewable. So we only have a finite amount. So therefore, the only other area of the world other than the United States, which we had the Keystone Pipeline, the only other area of the world is the Middle East. And I don't even entirely know if that's exactly what. That's definitely just one facet. It's probably also the occult artifacts, like the body of Gilgamesh, right? That they pulled out of Iraq. If that's true, who the fuck knows? You have to understand, these people are literally batting our psyches around like it's badminton, like it's a fucking tennis court. It's insane. They're batting your psyche around, and the smarter you are, the worse it is. Absolutely. Right? Until you realize, oh shit, you know what? The one thing I can look at is the law. How does the law work? That'll tell me how the whole world works, because guess what? They can't change it. They can only try to get you to agree to shit and then enshrine what you have agreed to. They enshrine it like the U.S. Code, right? Very first Title 1, because it's not an article, it's a code. It's a subdivision of a fucking statute, which is just one aspect of fake law. Okay, that's it. But so they through the 14th Amendment, they're like, well, you got the United States Code. It's all super complex, gives the medical wing of the corporate oligarchy so much power. But at the end of the day, Title 1, Section 8 of the United States Code says that human beings, persons, and individuals at any point in time they're used in the United States Code. And you can look this up. I swear, prove me wrong. I've shown it on my show. Anytime the word person, individual, or human being are used in the United States Code, or anything that's derived from the United States Code, which means like the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code or the Virginia Motor Vehicle or any of that stuff, those words mean infant. An infant member of the species Homo sapien, meaning you're not a man, you're not an adult, you're a child. And then you get the whole entire governance by parens patriae, government as parent, because you're not capable you're dependent on the government. The greatest sin any people can ever make is to be dependent on their government, because when you're dependent on anybody, if you become dependent on me, right, in my private capacity, I own you. I can make you, through contract, do whatever the fuck I want. Just look at landlords. Same concept. Why is this? Am I speaking Spanish, guys? Listen, Spanish not a bad language. It automatically differentiates the genders. Okay, it does. That's what I find amazing about it. Something that's female or feminine, like fruit, it's in there with the A at the end. You know what I mean? So I respect Spanish, but I'm saying I'm speaking Spanish, because you motherfuckers, not my regular people, but like people seem to not understand how simple this is. Simple, guys. Let me know in the chat if you agree.
And make it all part of the New World Order. And we go after Chavez in Venezuela. And sure enough, later 9/11 happened. And I remember he was telling me how how you're gonna see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places, and there's gonna be this war on terror, which is no real enemy, and the whole thing is a giant hoax, but it's a way for the government to take over the American people.
He told you it was going to be a hoax.
Oh yeah, there's no question. He says there's gonna be war on terror, and he's just laughing. There's no who are we fighting? I mean, why do you think 9/11 happened, and then nothing's happened since then? Do you think that our security is so great here that these people who pulled off 9/11, who were able to can't knock down another plane? Come on, it's ridiculous. 9/11.
Oh my goodness. Listen, Hey, I gotta give it up to you, dead and running. This is a thought-provoking statement for most people, and I will end the thought required immediately. So, unilateral contracts are unenforceable unless you were never declared competent to enter that contract in the first place. And somebody else must necessarily have power of attorney over you. They did this from the literal beginning. I'm not shitting you. Michigan created its probate court to take control of minor estates or infant estates or people who are incapacitated. They created it a full 8 years before they were a state because that was the fucking plan. Yes, so unilateral contracts between two competent people who are of age and control their estates are not enforceable. So they made the entire system one big unilateral contract by removing your knowledge of the law. Period. That's it. You are right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that they found a workaround for that, and that is absolutely what they're doing. That's actually why they had to do it that way.
It was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear of the American people into subordinating themselves to anything the government wants them to do. That's what it's about, and to create this endless war on terror. And that's why and that was the first lie. And the next lie was going into Iraq, to get Saddam Hussein out with his weapons of mass destruction. That was the next lie.
Now, specifically, this was a little over 6 years ago.
This was
11 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And Nick Rockefeller, who's a lawyer, he's become your friend over the previous years, and he's saying to you that there's going to be this big event, and then out of that we're going to have a war on terror, and it's just going to go on and on.
Right, an endless war on terror without any real enemy that you can never. So you can never define a winner.
And did he say that it's going to be perfect because you can't define an enemy? It just goes on.
Yeah, because you can't define a winner. There's no one to beat, so it goes on and on forever. And they can do whatever they want. They scare the hell out of the American public. Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say it out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview. The fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. Yeah, there's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq and people over there fighting, But the war on terror, it's a joke, And until we discover what really happened on 9/11 and who was responsible for 9/11, because that's where the war on terror emanates from. That's where it comes from. It was 9/11 that allowed this war on terror to begin. And until we get to the bottom root of 9/11, the truth of 9/11, we'll never know about the war on terror.
Aaron, you said that he was, and I think it's important, and I know this about the Rockefellers.
Well,
Cuddy,
here, let me stop this for a second. And I'm sure most of my regular viewers already know what I'm going to say, right? So it's the same formula. Everything that I'm telling you, so people like me and people like you, my audience, like when we're not finding anything new, which is the name, the title of the show tonight's The Old World Order. It's the same shit that they use on you over and over and over again. It's problem, reaction, solution. Okay, it only takes a cursory glance to look at 9/11 and say, oh, so you're telling me which there were no planes, actually, and we should all know that. But like the story they tried to sell us is that 3 planes that took, well, first of all, the 2 planes that took down 3 towers, right, on top of the other plane, 2 planes that were flying around, right? The one that landed randomly in Pennsylvania, and then the one that hit the Pentagon, right? That they were allowed to fly around in American airspace unmolested for over 45 minutes before finally crashing into hard critical targets of the United. Are you fucking kidding me? Just that alone by itself. But then you don't even get into the, well, let's look into the film students that were planting bombs in the tower leading up to, or let's look into the fact that nobody found any plane wreckage outside of the Pentagon, or let's look into the fact that Donald Rumsfeld said $2.3 trillion went missing the day before, but none of that. So what they did was they packaged all of the stuff they wanted to accomplish. They created a narrative for it, and then they introduced the false flag. That's how they do everything. It's the gun control narrative. It's every narrative. It's the same. It's so old. It's from the 1800s, from Friedrich Hegel, German philosopher, the Hegelian dialectic. It's so old that they've literally been able to do it to us for over 200 years. The Civil War. Actually, let's go back even further. The fucking Whiskey Rebellion. Okay, Shays Rebellion allowed for the creation of the Constitution. They have done this the entire time. The Constitution is a hated document, was a hated document by the founders and the people. Okay? Disgusting. It was only wanted by the central bankers to give the judicial branch of government just basically plenary power. Well, two things. To give the legislative branch plenary power over commerce, and to give the judicial branch plenary power over law, or what is determined to conform to the. And in fact, and I'm going to do a breakdown on this in a little bit, Marbury versus Madison doesn't say that the Constitution or that Supreme Court can declare what's constitutional or not, which is what people interpreted. They're like, oh, anything repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. No, actually, what the ruling of Marbury versus Madison, which I have on my phone and will have on my new computer, we'll go through it, says that what is constitutional is beyond us, because we were created by the Constitution and the people created the Constitution. The created can never be subject to the creator. It's a maxim. It's a principle. It just cannot ever. That's why they had to take you out of the realm of people and make you person. All persons, right, born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, right, are now citizens of the United States and the state in which they reside. So they had to drag you under that fucking net. They had to drag you under it in order to use you as collateral, your sweat equity, your future labor in the form. And you know what's a funny thing? If you work for a company that's got a 401k, that's just private Social Security. That's all that is. It's the same thing. They create this big trust fund. They pool all your money together, get to borrow against it, use it as equity. It's never about you. It's the same thing. It's all the same tools that they use at the highest levels of the game to manage these whales of fucking investment trusts that they create to through philanthropic supposed philanthropic purposes take control of the entire population. That's what they're doing. Like, is it clear yet or no? Am I speaking Spanish? I keep asking that, right? So, anyway, let's go back to this.
You'll be 20 years old in a lunch line at college, and there's David Rockefeller. And here's your, I mean, they're experts at recruiting and getting what they call players. And that clearly he was, I mean, I want to make it specific and just get you to reiterate what you said last night about you got 30% of the vote, you were having an effect.
I'm sorry. I actually got to stop it because I just thought of something. It goes even deeper. Think about the draft during Vietnam. Like, where in the fuck did the grandchild, remember the grandchild of the people, okay, get the idea that they could demand that you go fight in a foreign war without cause? Or even period. that they could demand that you could do that. They work for you. We shouldn't even be in that war without your consent. And the amount of opposition to that war at that time should have thrown the consent into question. Absolutely. Right? But outside of that, that's the whole thing, because you became 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is the one thing. So I'm going to bring up something interesting that's going on with Trump, and hopefully one of my good friends is watching at this point in time. That I want to really understand this is that they're shying away. The only way they can get Trump out of office, okay, is the 14th Amendment. That's what they set it up for with the insurrection and rebellion thing on January 6th, right? It's all been a plan, but the problem was a glaring deficiency in their plan is if you bring up the 14th Amendment, you bring up the invalidity of the 14th Amendment, which is proven. It's on congressional record, okay? And it's evident, and people like me can explain it very simply, that there is no federal citizen. There's no such thing as a fucking federal citizen within the states, not one. You're only a federal citizen if you're in a territory, right? Which must mean that if we're all federal citizens within the states, then the United States is a foreign corporation territorially occupying the states through the foreign court system to fleece us for securities and to generate securities, right? So, which is money, by the way, but it's not money, it's currency. Right, but that's all everything is now. Everybody trades debt. The owners have the wealthy, like the valuable stuff, and they're holding it. Now everything's a big game of Monopoly. You're playing in a sandbox. I love when VSOF says that. You're just an infant playing in a sandbox, 100%. Just playing in the sandbox, fake money, right? Nothing, it's not money, it's currency. Okay, right? They have no ability to do any of that. They never have. That's actually not, that's where they fudged the Constitution. Now, if the Constitution had lawfully been, see, here's the whole thing. They would be doing everything lawfully if they didn't have to break the law a couple times to make it go through, which they definitely did, and your boy knows exactly where it happened. Okay? And one of those places is when they ratified the 14th Amendment in the first place. It did not receive 3/4 of the votes of the same states that were allowed to vote on the 13th Amendment. Okay, so they excluded the states that rejected the 14th Amendment from that ratification process, but those same states, they allowed them in the 13th Amendment, which everybody's like, yeah, no slavery. Duh, makes sense, right? No, it's because they wanted to create a standardized, uniform system of slavery. 100%. Okay, so the 14th Amendment split. So the only way that they can get Trump out of office is by using the insurrection and rebellion clause of the 14th Amendment. But to bring the 14th Amendment to light is going to allow people like me to destroy it. But if we destroy the 14th Amendment, guess what? The federal government becomes nothing again. And that's also not part of the plan. That's not part of the plan either, clearly, right? So that's why they're shying away from it. Their only fucking thing that they have to use will break the ultimate complete plan of what everybody wants to do, which is enslave you into technocracy. Okay, that's the solid, complete plan. We bought time. We're not done yet, though. We're not done. We're not done. And that's where my faggot, douchebag father didn't understand when we were having that discussion about, dude, I'm not a statist, okay? I understand I'm a realist. I know the actual need for government. If you could have a perfect world, right, where people could govern themselves and be honest in trade and commerce, and you don't have to worry about foreign nations invading you, then yes, yeah, everybody could just be no government, right? But the fact that that is not the case, you have competing ideologies of Islam, Judaism, fucking the Maoist communism and all these other, you know what I mean? Like everything converging, that any sign of, so you can only, the best you can do is to have a limited government to facilitate a free society within a small portion of the world, because the world's not ready for entire freedom. Am I speaking Spanish, people? Let me know in the chat. Am I speaking Spanish? Because I feel like I'm not. Okay. All right. So at the end of the day, the whole point, if you actually want to be free and want to take advantage of what this country was actually created, and the idea of the very Masonic founders of this country had in mind for mankind, not humanity, which is in itself a divisive term, humanity, right? What color of man are you, right? Um, if you want to take full advantage of this situation, right, you have to learn the fucking law. And it's not that complicated. Okay, so I'll tell you, it took me like over a decade to get to the understanding that I'm at. And I agree, but I've done most of the legwork of chewing through the bullshit and the words that you don't even need to learn because they're made up for one particular statute. Like, you know, that's what holds a lot of law dogs up. It's like, oh, I'm going to learn what this means. I'm going to learn about, but it was only made up for that one statute. It's called statutory construction. They can make up words in that statute to confuse you if you're reading it on a cursory type of situation, and then you're not going to look at the definition. That's why they do all these confusing words, right? But I do actually know them. I know what they mean, because I wasted a lot of time doing that. So if I was going to take down, like once I actually started to really learn law and the origin of law and take into account the spirituality of it, it didn't take me that long. And it's pretty simple. You have the law and then you have statute. That's it. You have what men write and then what exists. And men can only write about trade between men. That's it. And they know it. Like the people, you don't have to believe it. They know it. The people at the top will never try to write something that exceeds their ability to have authority over it. They just will not. They're not going to actually try to really make law. And the laws they do make come under a contract that you signed that allows them to have authority over you, which you can very simply just be like, okay, you took it. I was an infant. Yes, I was. I was one. Now I realize what you're doing. Okay, and you're trying to impose your personal will on me and my property, and no, that's not a thing, because I know how it works now, right? Will or property is the ultimate expression of my will, and I, of my own free will and accord, have absolute sentience and competence to manage my own affairs, and you can absolutely fuck off. And then the only thing beyond that is you just put it on a record, on a public record that they have to produce and show to other people. They have to give you a number and everything. It becomes the highest form of evidence in law. Then anytime you get pulled over, be like, yeah, hey, listen, I don't have any contracts with the state. What do you want? Yeah, my vehicle's not collateral for debt, so I'm not subject to the motor vehicle code. What do you want? What are you talking about? Oh, you want to take it to court? Okay, I'll be peaceful. That's fine. Go ahead, write it. Write the ticket. I'm going to sign it without prejudice, right? If I have to, sign it, depending on what state you're in. Then you go to court. Just be like, I have no idea who is this case against? This isn't a common law court. Is this a court of record? Well, we keep a record. Well, I didn't ask that. Is this a court of record? Right. No, it's not, right? It's statutory. It's a corporation. It's a municipal. It's a bank, is what it is at the end of the day. But they're going to be like, well, no. Okay, so this isn't common law. So what contract am I under? Because that's the only way you can come outside of common law, is what contract am I under? Can you produce it? Can you enforce it? Can you explain it? Any of those things? No, you fucking can't. Because you're trying to charge me and fine me and fee me for the use of my own property, which you want to presume is under your administration. Suck a fat, honking, fucking black radiator hose right now. That's how I feel about that. Just big old entire radiator hose, put it in your mouth, suck a dick, dude, because it's not happening, right? But that's what their whole industry is based on. And ladies and gentlemen, please trust me when I tell you it is that simple. It is that fucking simple. That's it. It's the Wizard of Oz. Like, he put on all these smoke and mirrors, and at the end of the day, it was just like, but that's my estate. Why are you managing it? And then the fucking big green man becomes a tiny, scared little Jew fuck behind the screen. That's what happens. Or maybe even not. Maybe Arab fuck. Who knows? Or maybe a white fucker. Who knows? Right? Because they're all in on it. Transcends the whole race thing. It's the same. It's just the moneyed people who know how law works, and then the rabble, chattel, cattle. That's it. Those are the two classes. They have nothing to do with whether you're black, white, Jew. It doesn't matter. It actually, and I know that there's a lot of Jew, and they are active because of that. And Talmudic Judaism, it's a thing. But at the end of the day, like, they ally with everyone else who sees the same. It's all the same people, dude. It's the same people under the same belief system of you're a retard. So we'll watch a little bit more.
As hell. They knew that you'd started the Constitution Party.
Yeah.
They knew that you were somebody who was taking action and getting things done. You'd already made some big films, had a lot of other successes.
Right.
So they were trying to recruit you. And didn't it come down to the point of, hey, we are here to recruit you, and don't worry, your chip's going to say, don't mess with us. This guy's don't touch.
Yeah, yes, that did happen. I was definitely being recruited.
That's actually so entirely accurate. It's ridiculous. And they did recruit Aaron Russo, or attempt to. And this is why I'm sure. And I also want to remind you guys that he's 100% Jewish. He is. This guy's a Jew. He's totally Jewish. And this is why I try to steer away from the anti-Jew stuff lately on my podcast, because they are successful because their culture, the way they've preserved their culture, and they're smart, and a lot of them are involved. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with Jewish people. It just has to do with elite Zionists who are not all Jewish. And on top of that, it's even beyond that, because that's the dichotomy that was created between the Zionists and the Muslim faction. It's just basically a way to keep you from unifying it and understanding that we should all just worry about our own shit and not try to control other people. That's a fact. And it's necessary for them to take control of your shit. They need you to be on board with taking control of other people's shit. It's just how it works.
But it's more subtle than that.
Well, in your words, just go through the process, and then what he said.
Well, what it is we remember we were friends, and we used to come to my house a lot. We'd have dinner, we'd talk, and he'd tell me about business investments, how you get involved in, or they would help me with this business investment or that business investment. And was I interested in joining the Council on Foreign Relations? I would have to get a letter to join them, but was I interested in that? And just stuff, leading you on. And I used to say to him that I never really did that, because that wasn't where I was coming from. As much as I like you, Nick,
I like him.
Your ways and my ways, we're on the opposite side of the fence.
I can relate.
I don't believe in enslaving people, and
he would come back with, "Oh, I do."
Well, it would be more like,
it's better for them.
It's more like, how do I put it? It was like,
I like how he's about to put this, because that's how I try to explain. Yeah.
What do you care about those people? What difference does it make to you? Take care of your own life. Do the best you can for you and your family.
That's
what do the rest of the people mean to you? They don't mean anything to you.
And I have to say, there's a certain amount of validity. There's a certain amount of validity to that, right? Like what he just said. What do you care? Most people are stupid. It's alluring. It's alluring to a lot of people. You know what I mean? But I want to point this out. This Jewish guy right here, right? he actually had, it's not about whether he's Jewish or Catholic or fucking anything. And that's like, these people still exist in those, you know, and that's what the, like the corruption of organizations. And that's where I fell victim um to just blaming entire groups or societies or organizations of people, and I'm sure a lot of people do, but that's not, it's much more. You have like the people who are trying to do something, you know, and they infiltrate these various organizations, groups, etc., and they try to uh, you know, convert them just like they did to Aaron. And Aaron was not, and this is why I like this man.
People. You know, it was just a lack of caring, you know, and that's just not who I was. It was just sort of like cold, you know. It was just like cold, you know. And I used to say to him, what's the point of all this? You have all the money in the world you need. You have all the power you need. What's the point? You know, what's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society, to have the bankers, the elite people, you know, the bankers and some governor controlling the world. And I said, do all the people in the Council on Foreign Relations believe this way you do? He said, no, no, no. You know, most of them believe they're doing the right thing. A lot of them believe it's better off being socialistic.
Actually.
You know, we have to convince people that that socialism is really capitalism. Because America is becoming a socialist country. It's a communist country today.
And here we are years later after Aaron Russo points out that this is not a capitalist or free market country, but is really socialist. In fact, here's the cover of Newsweek. We are all socialists now. But this isn't the...
All right, guys. I don't want my streams to run like 5 hours anymore. So I'm going to end it tonight, and we'll pick up from this exact point next weekend, even if I have to use my wife's laptop, which she does not particularly enjoy. But I hope I was able to elucidate a lot of the, you know, what would ordinarily, and especially when it comes to that last statement, it's like when we put ourselves, we have this tendency as mankind, right, to want to itemize, file away, organize, and assign everything to a specific label, group, organization, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, nobody is entirely any of those things except for the people who made them in the first place, if that makes sense. There are many people, I believe, in the CFR, and really when Russo said that, and that was the first time I really realized, like, yeah, of course they would keep it mostly just like any other organization. They'd keep it mostly people who don't really know what's going on. They just know that to be a part of it is a position of status, right? And to be able to further their career and maybe expand their influence, right? The same I find true with pretty much every organization. I'm a part of one of them. You know what I mean? And I'm not telling you, well, of course you guys would be like, well, you'd say that because you're part, but I mean, like, honestly, I'm not though. I'm just saying, like, I see, like, there's injustice in every organization, and you can see the tentacles of these people who want total control over you in every organization. And I personally fight against it in mine, and that's what I'm known for. And I'm not very popular, but it has no reflection on the people or the institutions themselves. And I'm not being like kumbaya. This is one simple enemy, and the simple enemy are people who want to remove God so that they can be God and create the laws under which you live. And they don't want to be God forever. Well, they do actually. That's what transhumanism is. They know once they do this, like, God not too happy with them, so they need to figure out how to live forever. That's what transhumanism is. but they want to usurp the authority and power of God. That's a simple fact. It is. There is and has always been, and you can read from the Magna Carta. I can have explained it. That infusing the only way they could get a perpetual contract over you is to introduce trust law, which was created, who knows by whom, but came out of Rome. Introduce trust law into common law and be like, yeah, everybody's absolutely free unless you happen to die without a will and your heir is not of age. It's called dying intestate, right? And if that one specific situation happens, then the state or the crown or whatever it is can come in, take control of that estate so that the property does not go to waste. And then we can administrate that estate until the heir comes of age. And that introduction of that into common law, which is a business commercial thing regarding property, in 1215 has led to the entire enslavement of the world in 2024. It has. Because by introducing that in writing and getting papal and royal agreement to it, as well as the agreement of the aristocrats, and then moving it down all the way to the line till we create an actual 100% common law country without a monarch, that allowed the aristocrats to usurp the property, the estates of the ignorant who have no idea. They know no law. They have no idea of what property is or the right to it or why they have a right to it. They have no understanding of will. They knew this the whole time. That is why the Magna Carta is the very first document in the 1929 Michigan compiled, because they need it. They need it to be. They need to be able to take control of your estate. People would look at that and be like, oh, Magna Carta, so they understand common law. Yeah, they do. They understand common law perfectly well. Yes, they do. You do not. And you have no access to it because you do not know it. And they know that you do not know it and that you are not going to learn it. And so now they control your estate. They've mortgaged it to the federal corporation. The federal corporation uses it to buy missiles to bomb other countries. So, yeah, congratulations. Right? All because you don't know the law. That's it. Whole reason. I'm dead serious. I can prove it. I challenge, if you know a lawyer and you're watching this, send my challenge to him. Like, this guy wants to debate you on law. And you know what? Tell him I'm an idiot. Tell him I don't know shit. Right? Because then I will fucking undress him. I'll take his bar card. I'll roll up a fucking joint out of it. And I'll smoke weed out of his fucking bar card. And I don't even like smoking weed. But I'll do it just to be disrespectful. Because no, that is exactly what's going on. This is how law works. There are only two forms of law. There is the law, and then there are statutory rules and codes that you have to agree to by contract. That's it. Can prove it. I can prove it a million times over. Now, everybody watching wants to get to where I'm at, and I understand that. But you have to be serious enough that you have no idea how much I've sacrificed, how much I've studied, okay, how much I've actually digested and went through and understood. It's all I think about 24/7. So to be where I'm at is a bit. I'm not trying to pat myself on, but I'm just telling you the truth. It's going to take you a lot of work, and I want you to do it. And if you reach out to me and contact me to help you, and you do not put forth the effort, I will be incredibly pissed. Which is the only reason I brought up the subscription thing that I did earlier. Not because I want the money. Well, of course, everybody likes money, but that's not why. It's because, like, maybe when people personally have skin in the game, then they'll take their own shit seriously. Do you know what I mean? That being the only reason. But I don't know. I'm just a guy out here trying to spitball. How do we figure this out? And I know what's going on. I know how they're doing it, and I'm trying to explain it to you. And I know it sounds like a foreign language because there's such a gap of information between the people watching this and me and what I've actually sacrificed a majority of my life to learn. And when you look at it like that, it's true. I mean, I've gotten into fights with my family multiple times. Like, this has been my whole obsession my entire life. So now I'm bringing this to you, right? And what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be like, yeah, I know that's true and fuck the government? Do you think we don't need a government? Because we do need a government. We actually do. We need one controlled by the people, though. It's different. And in order to get to that place, you have to become entirely competent in the law. Because if we had no organizational authority or ability in this country, okay, we would be invaded and annihilated in a second. And listen, that was all engineered to be that way, for sure, of course. It does not change that that is where we're at. So how do we respond? It's a game of chess, guys and ladies. It's a game of chess. So how do we respond? You guys let me know in the comments on the video. If you, I would love to continue with this interview because it's great. If you want me to go into Satanic Experiment Part 2, I will. And also, you know, if there's something particularly that you're having trouble understanding, either I can solve it in the comment and in the chat, or we can do a series on it. So just let me know, you know, depending on what the problem is. So, anyways, oh boy, I'm looking at the chat right now. The Unidozer got the alert late. Obviously, good to see you, man. Sorry, I'm just about to shut it down. Death to Tyrants, good to see you. Here I am. Dead and running. Yeah, what he said is actually it's so worth it. Come out of her. It's a very dark then enlightening road. It's just it's interesting. You can never actually entirely come out of her, which is part of the balance you have to strike. But for the sake and at the risk of sounding too esoteric this evening, let me go ahead and end this because I don't want it to be super long. I'm glad you guys popped in. I love you guys as always. I love that you guys check in on me. This time it's nothing personal. It's absolutely my computer and the company dealing with the warranty that I have on the computer and should be fixed shortly. I will do a show next weekend, and you guys should comment in the chat on what topic you want me to cover or what you are most interested in. And the people who actually comment, obviously, are the people I'm going to take most seriously. That's the direction I will go in for the next show. And once I get my laptop, nobody has a choice. We're going into attacking this system with common law. Absolutely. I have, like, they just attacked Archive, and just before they attacked Archive, I literally downloaded so many common law books on, and the important thing about these books are not that they're just telling you about common law, but they show you how to use it. And and you can, because any power you've delegated to the court to be able to use or delegated to the government in general, the ability to make statute, the ability to hold court, all of these things, because we, the people, are the sovereignty, we all still retain that ability to ourselves. We did not divest ourselves of that ability at all. And I want you to understand that. And just look to, well, when I showed you the Secretary of State in Colorado, but more importantly with Mojo and his ultimate failure because he got complacent He fucked that chord up. Just go back and look at that. Superior Court of Record. Great episode. And Mojo knows he did. And I love Mojo. And he just got lazy. He figured I did everything. And that's, you can't. You can't ever expect me to do your work. Okay? And you can't expect what you've already put out to just finish the job. Okay? This is going to be transformative, mind-blowing experience for you. If you continue on this path, if you found my channel, it will be. But you have to learn it, because if I listen, brothers and sisters, if I could put my knowledge in your head, well, some of it might scare the shit out of you guys, but I would, most of it, right? I would. I just, if it was, boom, here, take it, wouldn't even charge you, but I can't. I cannot. You have to go look it up. So anyway, we will pick up here at the 3601 mark, right? Which is 10. That's cool. And I hope you guys have a great evening. Let me look through last few comments and see. Yeah, love you, Mike. Thank you, man. Bullet said just found tonight's show. Check it out from the beginning. Check out older stuff. You might like it. Donald, don't worry about it. I am shadow banned for sure. I didn't even get the notification from my own show until 2 hours after it had began. So, always remedy in law. Absolutely. Absolutely. And written law is dead. And well, it's an interesting contradiction because the drumming would be living. But yeah. Yeah, you guys are going nuts over here. Love you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I'll be back next weekend. We'll finish going through this, and or actually, depending on what you guys comment on the stream, the people who rewatch it after they're done watching the flat Earth be beat to death with sticks, we'll see what you guys want to watch. So I will see you guys next weekend, and thank you for joining me. Have a good night. Good to see you, Ethan. I'm glad you joined in, man. Have a good one.